The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Politics, dude.
That's me.
We're trying to do sports here, and you're like, oh, how was the debate last night? Like, what is wrong with you?
I wake up in the morning and I need to talk about politics.
It's kind of gross.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is gross. It's one of my worst qualities, by far. By far.
Well, we welcome everybody into this very serious sports talk show.
Very, very,
Off
very
the Bench,
serious.
Presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner. We got Jacob Tissett behind the, producer chair
That's right.
today.
That's right.
Look at you.
Back again. Yeah, they trust me here now. I don't know why, but I'm here again. They keep sticking me back here.
Well, we had to suspend Casey for his insensitive comments yesterday to open up the show, so we don't know when he'll be back, but he's out indefinitely. Indefinitely suspended. But Casey, I hope you learn your lesson, and that sensitivity training, I hope it pays off when you get back, my friend. So there you go. But Elliot, good morning. We're talking sports today. Just try to be, disciplined.
No vice presidential debate. I'll try to keep that in mind. Yeah, it's a good day. It's a great day. Playoff baseball was yesterday. I don't know if you caught any of that, but that was a fun time. We have the Bills having Von Miller suspended. That's kind of crazy. 4 games, violating conduct policy. Bunch of stuff to talk about. It's fun.
Yeah, we're going to get into all that. Again, I saw an interesting article that was put out by the Cincinnati Enquirer just a couple days ago with the Pete Rose stuff yesterday. We didn't really dive into it a whole lot, but there are 6 candidates that had been circulating as potential rumored names to take over the managerial position for the Cincinnati Reds. 6 names have been eliminated from contention to get that. We'll talk about those names coming up here around the corner. We'll do some college football by ourselves. I want to talk Bengals-Ravens. I think there's a very interesting, up for grabs scenario for both teams coming up this weekend that we were kind of discussing before the show began today. And, we'll dive into anything and everything that we can over the next 2 hours. We'll just navigate through this. We'll fight through this.
We'll find something to talk about.
There's just nothing to ever talk about in October. That's always the problem.
No.
I can't wait for July.
July is the best month by far when there's just the Reds who are already been eliminated.
That's the spirit.
And that's it.
I yearn for the week after the All-Star break.
Not me. I'm gonna have PTSD after that for quite some time.
You're right. The post All-Star game sweep by the Nationals against us was sad. It was one of my least favorite parts of the season.
Because we were kind of excited coming out of that.
Very excited.
That's a lot, though, because you have a lot of least favorite parts of the season.
That's true. I do have like 27 least favorite parts of this season. 27 different ones.
What do we get up to? Like 4 or 5 enjoyable games?
4.
4?
I think I counted 4.
Okay.
There was a couple
Baby
good.
steps.
There was a couple good Ellie games, a really good Hunter Green game, and then the Reese Hines game, and then that was about it.
The Reese, man.
Remember Reese Hines?
Reese Hines made us bring up Aristides Aquino.
Yeah.
What a sad summer. I'm watching playoff baseball last night, and I'm like, this could be us. But we're sitting here talking about Luke Maley potentially being a player manager.
Shout out Jimmy. Shout out Jimmy's Tigers.
Yes.
Big win. Got scary, but big
win. Big win by James Tigers.
But James?
I call him James.
No, that's fine. Is
he formal?
That's totally fine.
I was just trying to be formal. What was that?
Ellie Roo. That's what you call yourself sometimes.
I don't call myself that. They call me that.
Why is everyone Roo?
Well, because
that's a Reed thing.
It's a Reed thing.
Like Rita Roo?
They call him Rita-Roo, like kangaroo, I think. But I don't really understand
when I see Reed, I think a kangaroo. That's what that's exactly where my mind goes.
But I don't know. Who knows? I just know it's Rita-Roo, Ellie-Roo, Casey-Roo, and
Jacob.
There's just Jacob.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's no Jakey-Roo. It's just Jacob.
Well, I tell you what, to get the train back on the tracks and to be this very serious sports talk show that we strive to be, let's kick off the show with a very traditional version of Elliot's Headlines.
Oh.
This is...
Up.
Hit it.
Did it go?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Playing, and it's playing audio. So
Okay.
I think so.
Elliot's headlines, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, all right. Here we go.
Knock yourself out.
The Detroit Tigers, they hung on to beat the Astros 3-1, got very, very, very shaky in the bottom of the ninth inning. Detroit was able to escape, the bases loaded, and Turk Skubal tossed six innings of shutout baseball. He struck out 6. So it's elimination time for the Astros. What a win for the Detroit Tigers. Could be a magical run for those of us that have a future on the Detroit Tigers.
The one thing I am worried about with the Tigers is Tariq Skubal can't pitch every game.
But here's the thing.
What if he does?
If he pitches every game, wouldn't it be worth it?
Right?
Because even if, let's say hypothetically, now hang with me. He pitches every other game. He doesn't have an arm after this postseason.
Right.
But you win a World Series. I feel like that's a fair trade-off, no? I would take it. But that's just me. Tigers take game 1. The Royals, they take their game 1 against the Orioles, winning 1-0. Bobby Witt drove in the only run of the game. It was on a single. Cole Ragans was cruising, had to leave early due to an injury. 6 innings of shutout baseball. I think he was at like 80 pitches. He was going to keep going for a while, but came down with the injury bug. So, nonetheless, Orioles trail 1-0. Ended their season poorly, and now they're down early in the postseason. The Mets, their magical run continues. They crushed the Milwaukee Brewers 8-4. The Brewers season comes down to Frankie Montas.
Beautiful.
Frankie Montas is the elimination game pitcher for the Milwaukee Brewers.
So how he pitches today determines if it was a good signing or not, right?
1,000,000%.
If he wins this game for the Brewers, bad signing by the Reds.
No, wait.
If he loses the Brewers season, it was a great signing by the Reds and a great trade.
But don't you want him...
I want the Brewers to lose always.
I know, but wouldn't you say him pitching good means that it was a good signing?
The Reds' big brain plan when they signed Frankie Montas was to ship him to Milwaukee.
Was to eliminate
for the hometown kid,
Okay.
Joey Wiemer, who's going to be an incredible outfield addition for this team in 2029. And then he's going to tank their season in the playoffs.
I'm following now.
It's the galaxy brain picture. You go all the way down. Nick Kroll is all the way at the bottom. His whole body is just galaxy brain.
See, you say that, but I'm a big fan of the idea of putting Weimer at shortstop. I don't know. I don't know what but besides the point. Get back to you, Elliot. Elliot's headlines, ladies and gentlemen.
How many errors would it take for Joey Wiemer to be benched? Where was I? Michael King. He tossed 7 innings of shutout baseball against the Braves. San Diego wins 4-0 in Game 1. Fernando Tatis hit a home run in the first inning. Games go today. Tigers, Astros, 2:32. Royals, Orioles, 4:38. Mets, Brewers, 7:38. Braves, Padres, the nightcap, 8:38. In other news, MLB news, the Diamondbacks owner, Ken Kendrick, said he was to blame for signing Jordan Montgomery. Quote, "It wasn't in our game plan. You know, when he was signed right at the end of spring training, and looking back in hindsight, a horrible decision to have invested that money in a guy that performed as poorly as he did. It was our biggest mistake this season from a talent standpoint, and I'm the perpetrator of that." That's a tough quote if you're a player currently on the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I didn't know the details of the full quote, and then you guys were sharing that before, but when you see so many examples of bad ownership around sports, as bad as what we think we have it. We watch what happened with the A's. You hear that little leak that came out yesterday. Like, I'm glad that we never hear from the ownership of the Reds. And the last time we really, truly heard from the ownership of the Reds, I guess it was the "where are you going to go?" And I think he learned his lesson not to say anything after that. But and I feel bad for, the manager, too, because, you got to manage a lot. You're managing that situation. What do you say when you sit down with that player and you're sitting across from him and saying, yeah, F that guy? What do you say to reel him back in? We were joking before, but I come back. I take that money. I literally take that money just to stick it to him. Yeah.
Yeah, so Montgomery has a player option to come back with the Diamondbacks. And I don't know why.
North of $20 million.
I don't know why you wouldn't just come back and say, you know what, I'm here now. You can't say it if you're the owner. You just can't say that. So I don't know what the other Diamondbacks players are feeling. I don't know what the people in the organization are feeling there. But that is absolutely ludicrous.
How do you play for the guy if every time you go out there, you're like, if I play bad, our owner's going to go say I'm the worst signing we've ever made ever?
he should just Michael Scott it and say, I'm going to player option. I'm going to player option harder. Like, I'm going to player option even harder, man. Like, I think that's what he should do. But you're right. It's, if you win, you feel like, well, great. Now he's benefiting from me, winning for you. But if I lose, you just know. You feel like he's in the owner's suite just looking right down at you. I don't know.
I just don't know what he had to gain from saying it. Like, what are you getting?
You don't get the money back.
Yeah, I guess what you're trying to do is sway him away, maybe.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to have him leave the organization so you don't have to pay him anymore. But that's brutal. Continuing on here, WNBA, the Lynx beat the Suns 77-70 to even up that series 1 apiece. The Liberty take a 2-0 series lead over the Aces. 88-84 win there. Did you watch those games?
That's why I'm so tired today.
Yeah.
Stayed up very, very late.
That's what I did too.
Very
WNBA
late.
ended a week or two ago.
Yeah. In the
That's
elimination game, when Caitlin Clark got eliminated, so did the WNBA.
That's right.
FC Cincinnati, they are back. They're taking on New York City FC. Kicks off at 7:30 tonight in New York. So if anybody wants to travel out for that one on a Wednesday night.
Rivalry game.
Rivalry game?
I don't know.
It's probably not, right?
I mean, how many teams are in the league? Aren't they all rivals?
I don't know. I think they're all rivals. Maybe. It's whoever's got Messi. It's whoever's got, like, the Premier League guys.
So if you have Messi, do
rivals
you
with
actually
them.
play him, or I don't know how this I
Not
don't know how
until-
soccer works.
We don't know if these games count or not.
Not until late in the season. I really don't know if this is just a regular season game or not. I don't know the rules. But good for FC Cincinnati. Good luck to them. Outside of that, the NFL, I'd mentioned it, but Von Miller suspended 4 games. That's going to be a tough contract looking back at it. He's the only player on defense, I think, that's making money. So good luck to the Buffalo Bills. That's a brutal blow after losing to the Baltimore Ravens in the way they did. Outside of that, I don't think there's any other headlines, gentlemen. I was looking around, and the only thing I saw, and maybe I can find it again here, but LeBron James, he says he's not going to put new expectations on the Lakers this season because his son's there. It's just going to be a normal time. No expectations.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot out of Lakers camp. They drive separate to practice. That's cute. He doesn't pick his son up on the way to work. We found out that he calls him, LeBron, or he doesn't call him dad at practice. That would be a weird element. I don't know
That
what
would
you
be
do.
weird.
I watch Golick and
I think
Golick
it'd
Jr.
be weirder to call him. What do you call him?
Well, I
Coach?
don't know, but
LeBron?
hey, Dad, I'm open. Like, what do you say?
Yeah.
Do you call your dad? Like, I wouldn't call my dad by his first name in the practice setting. That seems weird to me.
If he's your coworker,
I would still call him dad.
So I watch.
did your dad ever coach you or anything?
Yeah, I'd call him coach.
Right. So isn't this the same thing? You didn't call
But I
him
could call
by
him-
his first name.
Well, I could call him coach.
Did you call him dad when he was your coach?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
See, I never called my dad dad when he was the coach.
But like, I could also call him coach. Calling coach and calling him by his first name is two different
You
things.
call him
he
Goat.
could call LeBron coach. I mean,
Call him
he's-
GOAT. Call him 2-3.
You could call LeBron coach. You can call him GM. You can call him owner.
That's
you can
true.
call him a lot of
That's
things.
true.
I mean,
Whatever you want. But that's fair. That's all I've got. Those are your headlines for the day.
The Von Miller suspended 4 games for violating some
Okay.
policy? Did you touch on that?
I think I touched on it 3 times.
I believe so.
I couldn't have touched on it more.
I think
than
it was
that.
the most touched
I
on
think-
point of the headline.
I'm just on the.
I don't think
I'm
ESPN.
I'm on the list here of just things I just wanted to make sure, but you did, and as I questioned it, I already knew, and I could feel it going. Yeah, that was awkward.
So here's what's going to happen now. Here's what's going to happen now during headlines. I'm going to read my headlines, and then we're going to have a 3-question quiz. And if you fail it, I'm going to go home. That's what's going to happen now from these headlines.
I think I like that a lot.
So there it is.
So wait, when you're giving a lecture, I have to be listening and taking notes.
Correct.
Having flashbacks to college, and that is why I was there a while.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time.
How many
in
years
college.
were you there? How many years did it take?
I'm not a doctor. We'll just leave it at that. That should
Okay.
give you a little time frame.
That's
Okay.
good.
So,
A lot of people
Yeah.
aren't doctors.
yeah, there's that.
I'm kind of a doctor.
I would say so.
I'm a gambling doctor.
No, Dr. Locks.
Very nice. All right, this is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. Cincy B says Kinner was too drunk to take notes. I mean, no, I'm I'm very sober. Just honestly I must have not paid attention at that particular moment. So my bad. My bad. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. When we come back, obviously the Reds managerial search will continue. I know baseball fans as a whole focused on the playoffs, but when you're a Reds fan, this is the type of stuff you just live for. Off-season fodder. And it is the off-season for the Reds. Baseball's still full swing, but the Reds off-season started Sunday afternoon. So as we sit here and wait to figure out who the Reds are going to hire as their next manager, we just have to follow all the beat writers and all the rumor reports and kind of get an idea of just exactly what is the candidate pool that the Reds could potentially be selecting from. There's a lot of names that are being floated around out there. There was an article released from the Cincinnati Enquirer just a couple days ago that eliminated 6 names from the candidate list. We'll talk about those 6 names that aren't on the list. There's one name that has been rumored for years to take over the Cincinnati Reds managerial position once it opened up. He's on this list, but there's one name that I really want, that a lot of Reds fans want. Luckily not on that list. We're going to talk about it when we come back. More Off the Bench next. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, we got Jacob Tissett and Elliot Rearing. Casey, not off. He's off the show for a couple days. He is not, suspended by any means or anything like that. Shout out to Casey. Casey has other responsibilities that he's taking care of, and he'll be back here in a couple days. No, he is off. I lied. He is off, right?
No, he's just off.
He's just off. Oh, bum.
I think he's fixing his roof.
He's fixing the roof.
I mean, was it damaged from that windstorm over the weekend? Wink, wink.
No, I don't think. I think he's just got a bad roof.
I think so too.
Hate when that happens. But let's talk a little Cincinnati Reds. Right now, as we currently sit here, the Reds still looking for their next manager, and we're all speculating over who the next manager could be. Terry Francona. I love that name. Now, when people ask me why, well, I'm like, well, the resume speaks for itself. But I'm not going to sit here. In baseball, we debate all the time. What's the significance of the manager role? We complain about a manager, but we never really say when a manager is doing well unless they're winning a World Series or in the postseason. And maybe it's as simple as that. I don't know. But David Bell never got any credit when the Reds would have successful runs or would go on hot streaks. It was always about the play of Elly De La Cruz or the pitching or whatever. But then when they would lose, it was never, man, Elly needs to be better. The pitching needs to be better. It went right to David Bell. That's just, I guess, the flow of how sports works. I completely get that. But now we sit here and everyone has hot takes on who they think the next manager could be. A lot of names are being floated around out there, but there was an article that was released from the Cincinnati Enquirer that basically eliminated, according to sources, have eliminated 6 candidates from this list, some very interesting ones. The one right off the bat that I just thought was the absolute silliest was the talk of, again, if there's other organizations that have a good track record and they win a lot and they're in the playoffs regularly and they win a World Series, I don't know if we'll ever see a player manager again, but the fact that it was rumored that the Reds would go that route and the fact that they had to put that fire out just shows how silly this organization could be. But no, we will not see backup catcher Luke Maile as a player manager for the Reds in 2025.
I think there could be a player manager again. I just don't think it would be a player like, respectfully, and I say this with all due love and respect, a player like Luke Maile who is not really playing in general. Like he's a backup catcher, and that's no disrespect. He serviceable role on a roster, but I'm saying it would have to be like a Pete Rose type of situation. He'd have to be the leader. He'd have to be playing. He'd have to be an active role on the team, like Jonathan India.
Like Jonathan India.
It would be great if India was the manager.
Does the player have to be a star player for that to work, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Can't just be a role player or a guy that could be traded at the
I don't think it could be a role player. I don't think it could be a role player.
Valid enough. I just thought that was silly that name popped up on the list. But luckily, Jake, no Luke Maile.
Yeah, no, not dodged a bullet there. I do kind of disagree, Elliot. I feel like if there is going to be a player manager again in today's era, it is going to be someone like Luke Maile, who's not playing and can just manage and is not being paid as a player, really. I mean, Luke Maile is a pretty cheap contract as a backup catcher. I feel like if anyone's going to be a manager in that kind of role, I think that would probably make the most sense. A guy that's not playing every day so that he can focus on the managerial aspects of looking at the iPad and telling him what the numbers tell him to do.
Yeah, that's fair, and no doubt about it. I just think that there might be players who take issue, players that take issue with decisions made by a manager who is
not on the field.
Not on the field. You know what I
But
mean?
an active player.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that's fair.
if Ellie De La Cruz is telling me to go do something, I'm going to go do it.
That's fair.
If Santiago Espinal is telling me to do something, I'll just say no, thank you. So it's like I think that might be the difference.
Do you think the players at the end of this season respected Santiago Espinal more than David Bell?
Yeah, probably.
I didn't think that the players had a problem with David Bell.
No
until-
player.
I
had a
didn't
problem.
either.
No
Until-
player had a problem with David Bell.
But the Jonathan India quote at the end made you wonder. I know we had Marty on last week. He brought up the fact that, hey, even the players came out late and brought that up, the accountability thing, and that being, of course, Jonathan India. I don't know if that was a shot at David Bell or not, but nonetheless, it was mentioned, and that's what really kind of led to a lot of people speculating about that. Another name that's I'll throw two names out here that popped up on this list. Again, this is a list of candidates that are no longer even being considered as possibilities of managing the Cincinnati Reds and replacing David Bell. The backup catcher, Luke Mailey, the player manager role. That was never going to happen, but
Eliminated.
just to put that fire out, let's put that out right now.
Eliminated.
But Joe Girardi, who was a finalist for the job the last time it was open, in fact, it came down to David Bell and Joe Girardi. Joe Girardi was, making his way around the city of Cincinnati. He was being given a tour of Cincinnati. Many people thought that that's the route that the Reds were going to go. A lot of people were debating whether that would be the smart move or not. But again, some felt, hey, you're bringing in a guy that has won a World Series, that has been to the playoffs regularly and had experience as manager. Ultimately, the Reds went the route of David Bell. The other name, another Joe Madden, two veteran managers who have had success in the playoffs, won World Series. Those two names, those two candidates officially off the list.
I think those names are relatively similar towards the Terry Francona idea, which is why it was a little bit upsetting to have them knocked off the list. Not necessarily because I want Joe Madden or Joe Girardi managing the Reds, just because if that was the sect of guys that they were targeting and continuing to search for, then it would have made me so much more confident in their decision that maybe they will go out and get a Francona or someone who's much more developed in the league and proven as a winner. But I don't know. I think this list was a big mixed bag of some guys that weren't ever really in the mix, and then some guys that we thought might have been in the mix. So I didn't really know what to take from it. I was hoping that when I opened this article and it had 6 names, they were all going to be the same kind of manager so that I could
a wide
see
range.
which direction the Reds were going to go. But it really didn't have anything like that. And when Joe Girardi and Madden were on there, I was worried about the Francona dream, because those are guys I thought that would, if they were considering Francona, they'd also be considering. But I don't know that it necessarily means that they're out on that style of management.
Yeah, man, because like you said, I was nervous. There's, obviously the name Francona. That's the name I really want. I was worried when I opened this list that his name would be on there.
Yeah.
So I opened it up hesitantly, like, please don't be on there. And like you, when I started to see Joe Madden and Joe Girardi's name being on that list, I'm like, well, that means they're not going after an experienced manager as far as that's concerned. There's just a wide range of names from player manager to multiple World Series winning managers.
Right.
Like, that have been eliminated from contention to get this managerial role with the Cincinnati Reds. So it's a good point as far as trying to get an idea of what the messaging is. Some of this could be not the Reds taking them off the list. I mean, who knows? Joe Madden could have said, no thanks.
For sure.
Girardi could have said, nah, you passed to me the last time. I have no interest in it this time. Who knows? Scott Cervais, a couple of experienced managers, former Red Miguel Cairo, and then Scott Cervais, other two names that made their way on the list of names that are not being considered for the vacant role as far as we sit here today.
Yeah, I didn't expect any of the names that were eliminated to be the manager of the Reds. I just didn't expect it. I don't think Miguel Cairo's had enough experience. I don't think Joe Girardi and Joe Madden would have come here for a cheap contract, which is, I imagine, what the Reds are looking for right now. They're looking for somebody they can pay $1 million, and basically they can tell them what to do and they'll do it no matter what. Barry Larkin, there was not even a second of a thought that I thought that Barry Larkin would be the manager of the Reds. I think Reds ownership thinks of that position as a throwaway job, someone they can blame whenever things go wrong. And I don't think the Castellinis would have been in a position to fire a beloved hero like Barry Larkin.
Well, there had to have been something. And again, yes, as Elliot just said, the final name on that list was obviously a name that had been rumored for a couple years. It lost steam and momentum this season for sure. I don't know if and let me ask you guys this. Did Barry Larkin calling games and not really connecting with Reds fans as a broadcaster lead to people being out on him? Because before he really started jumping in the broadcast booth and calling games here, there was a lot of Reds fans who were all about the idea of, man, Barry Larkin. When we think of Barry Larkin, we think of the last time this Reds organization was winning at a high level. There was just that connectivity there. He was also working closely with a lot of the farm system teams with the Cincinnati Reds. It just felt like they were kind of grooming him to be that guy. He had let it be known to the media that he ultimately wanted to manage and what he would do with the young core guys on the current Reds roster over the years. I don't know why people checked out on him outside of the fact that I started noticing people being out on him as a broadcaster, which simultaneously meant we're out on him as a candidate for manager. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I do believe he lost the faith of Reds fans just because I don't think he's done a great job as a broadcaster. Did that have something to do with it? Because there's really no tangible reason outside of, Barry Larkin, one of the all-time great Reds, wants to manage. We want him. Why would that thought go away? I also wonder if him being critical throughout some of the broadcasts over recent years led to the Reds just saying, no, we're not going that route either. I don't know, but the Barry Larkin roller coaster of, yes, we want him, no, we don't. Yes, we want him, no, we don't. That's been a wild ride over the last couple of years as far as his name constantly be thrown out there for David Bell to have to be looking over his shoulder.
I think the broadcasting side of it definitely has something to do with it, a little bit at least. There was that one moment, I forget this season, where Barry called out the organization. They need to be better. You have to win. I think a little bit of he didn't specifically say David Bell, but I think it was a call out maybe for David Bell. And I think that might have rubbed people the wrong way inside the organization. I'm just speaking out of turn. I don't know, but just my thoughts here. I also don't think that the manager should be just somebody we all like. I don't think that's like I see Joey Votto, Scott Rowland in the chat. I love those guys. But you can't just pick your favorite human beings to manage your team. It's just not how it works. They need to have managerial experience. They need to know what they're doing. And it's okay if they're not everybody's best friend. I'm okay with Skip Schumacher. I really am. I've in my brain, I've decided that I'm going to be okay with it when the Reds inevitably hire him. Do I want Skip? Not really. But I don't think he's a beloved player. I think he's had success in Miami at times. So, yeah, sure, I'll be okay with Skip Schumacher, and we'll see what he cooks up. But I just think the notion that we should just hire our favorite players just because we like them.
Right.
It's just like it's kind of what ESPN does with their analysts now on if you turn on any of the shows, right? It's just let's see what former player that everybody liked, and we'll just put them on the show, and we'll see if it works. That's kind of what it's become. And I feel like that's all around everything. Major League Baseball, how many recent retirees from baseball are now managers?
Yeah.
I feel like out of all the managers, there's a sizable percentage.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the way to go. I think there's guys that have had success in the league, coaching, managing teams. Those are the guys I target. I don't want the newbies. I don't want guys who have never coached a day in their life. That's not who I'm targeting here.
So there's two levels of thought on this as far as like people trying to read the situation with the Reds. You can use their cheapness against them and realize that, okay, you owe David Bell $2.5 million over the next 2 years. You will be paying David Bell to not manage your team for 2 more years. So that right there, in theory, means, okay, some believe that that's why they're going to go the cheap route and hire an inexperienced manager to go the cheaper route as far as who they hire, because they're going to be paying 2 managers at once. Or the flip side, and let me make sure I give credit to whoever said this in the chat. And, of course, I'm sorry if I'm not giving credit to the right person. It kind of scrolled up at this point. But Nick Krall's job is on the line. And to hire an inexperienced manager to lead the way, I think that would be a gutsy move for a guy that I think is, obviously president of baseball operations. I think that he is going to be solely responsible for this. And if it doesn't work, it's on him. He loses his job. I think the best route to go for job security to make everyone feel good would be the experienced manager route, which is why Francona makes all the sense in the world. So I think there's just a lot of different ways to think about the direction that the Reds are going to go. They're unpredictable.
Right.
Because sometimes they are aggressive. We label them as being this team that never wants to spend money. They've technically at times have become aggressive, and then it scares them because it doesn't work. They got aggressive in 19 heading into 20.
Yeah,
COVID kicked everyone's ass, obviously. And from a sports perspective, in this particular situation, we were debating before the show started. One of the biggest what ifs for me as a Reds fan as of late is what happens if we play a full 162 game season in 20 and there's no COVID, that pitching staff, that lineup, although it kind of now sounds silly to say that lineup because we saw it not produce in that 60-game stretch. But in theory, heading into that year, I'm like, man, this team's going to be good.
Yeah.
They're going to be between the pitching and the hitting. Like, this team's going to compete for the division. They spent a lot of money there. They spent money on Castellanos. They spent money on Moustakas. They were aggressive in getting the trades done to get a Trevor Bauer and a Sonny Gray. They were spending money. They were making aggressive moves, and it backfired, and it's like they go back into their shell now. They're just unpredictable because they operate like that one stretch, and then they get really cheap like they have the last 2 years. I think that's what makes this so unpredictable. We don't know who the hell they're going to be, and I think that's going to dictate at the end of the day, do they want to be aggressive and go get a Terry Francona, or are they going to go a cheaper manager route because they're also still paying David Bell?
I would be much more for the guys we like manager pitch if this team was in the depths of a rebuild trying to kickstart something and get to a point where we can compete. But I think all Reds fans are done with that. I think we view this team as a team that's very close to contention, and whether that's true or not, that's the mindset most people in Cincinnati are in right now. So to go out and hire a guy that has zero managerial experience or a guy that has had zero success, I don't know what that changes, because how is that different than David Bell? You brought him in here to be the iPad guy that's friends with everyone and can usher these young guys along and kind of be buddy-buddy, and that's kind of what it was, and it got us to where we are today. Thank you very much. Love it. Let's change something now. And I think that's why all Reds fans are basically unanimously talking about Terry Francona, because every single aspect of David Bell is the exact opposite with Terry Francona.
Yeah.
And we saw that David Bell didn't work, and whether you blame the manager or not, it didn't work. So why not just change everything and see if that'll work? So I understand why people want the Rollins and the Vottos, and it's because how many managers now in a row have we had that are unanimously hated here? But I push back on that and saying, if they win, they won't be hated. If you're good, you won't be hated as a manager. You're only hated because you lose. David Bell under 500 every single year. If he would have made the playoffs last year, he would have been loved in this city.
Yeah.
And it's like a 3-game switch. So to say we need guys that we already know and love in order to, be on the manager's side, I think is just a product of losing over the last however many years. And if whoever the manager is, love him or hate him when it's announced. If Barry Larkin was announced as the manager, half the fan base would have been ecstatic, half the fan base would have been so upset. If the Reds win 90 games and win the NL Central, everyone loves Barry Larkin as the manager. It doesn't matter what his name is as long as he produces on the field. So I'm going to try to not get too high or too low on whoever the final announcement is, because at the end of the day, the players have to play. And that's the same thing we've said with David Bell forever.
Yeah, and, the Joey Votto, when that gets thrown out, I don't think that's not for this Reds team, not for this scenario. Joey Votto is one of those, I don't know what's next for Votto, whether it's a media career or not, but he seems like a true baseball guy. When we talk about, athlete, there's some baseball players and then there's baseball guys. I think he's a baseball guy. I am curious if managing is ever in his future, because I do think if this team was embarking on a true rebuild and that there was many years coming up where we weren't sure what they were going to have, the Votto route wouldn't be the craziest idea in the world. It is right now, though. Not right. You need an experienced guy to come in right now as far as that's concerned. And like you said, I think that's why Tito's name's getting thrown out there. But at the same time, nothing makes sense with managers. There's not one clear blueprint, like what the Cubs just did, to go all out to go get their guy. They're not in the playoffs. The Guardian, who we think, the key to getting to the playoffs is Francona. Francona, yes, the Guardians made the playoffs with them, but he leaves and they got better. I don't think they got better because he left, but in theory, he left, and his absence has not impacted that organization at all. So I think it's hard to put a to get a feel for just what impact a manager makes. I think right now they need a manager to come in to shake things up, but nothing makes sense in baseball. Tito leaving Cleveland and them going back and forth for the best record in baseball season is wild to me. If you lose a manager, you lose a coach, you should feel that absence the next season. I don't think the Guardians did. And that's not a shot at Tito, but we think he comes in here and totally turns everything around. I think he does. I just think it's hard to have one set take on the impact of a manager in baseball, because I think it's more than just the one manager. I think you have to have the organization in a good place as well, or be able to receive the messaging from that guy coming in. We'll see what happens. But I will say this. I don't know if Tito's going to be a legit candidate or not, but I am happy that he wasn't on that list.
The good news is for Reds fans is that the Castellinis very much care about what fans think. Otherwise, David Bell would still be here. So there is a chance.
Yeah.
There is a chance that they make an exciting managerial move because they know it'll bring the fans back in after this disaster of a season.
And it's a lot cheaper than making an exciting free agent signing.
Correct. So I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't rule it out. The Joey Votto thing, I think Joey Votto would be a great manager. I know it's not really a serious conversation we're having right now, but I do think Joey Votto would be a great manager. I think that his teammates loved him outside of one, and that one was Trevor Bauer. And then outside of that, I think he was always working on his craft. He was constantly making changes with his game. He knew when his game was declining, he had to change it up. Despite what you say, Kinner, he did want to win games here in Cincinnati. He cares about that. He gets frustrated. I think Joey Votto would be a great manager one day. I just wouldn't want it to be here because I fear that if he had a losing season, the whole town would just be out on Joey Votto again, and I can't bear that.
If he wants to manage in the future, come be our hitting coach now.
Or be our hitting coach.
Come
Hitting
get some-
coach, listen.
Oh, I take him as a hitting coach right now. I take every player that
Yeah.
they're listing in the chat as the hitting coach.
Yeah, I'll
Scott
do
Rowland,
that.
Joey Votto, all of them. Let's bring the friends back for that role.
All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Also, again, to credit Gordon Whitmire again with the Cincinnati Enquirer. It was his work that was put out regarding this list, according to his sources. So I wanted to make sure we credit him, but citing that article from the Cincinnati Enquirer. Gordon Whitmire also puts in that article the two names that are being the most considered right now: Skip Schumacher and David Ross. Those are the two popular names that are being tossed around at the moment. Those are the two safest names. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those two, but I think there's just one move that I don't think either of those moves puts the baseball world on notice. I don't think any of those moves puts the Reds fans on notice. But I do think there's one name, and that is Francona, that will put everyone on notice. Because like I said before, it's the message of Francona. If Francona takes the Reds job, the message to me is that the Reds did well in the interview process, not the other way around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Francona's interviewing the Reds. And if Francona signs off to be the manager of the Reds, that means he was given a little power, given a little say, you know what I mean? I think that they tell him things that, okay, we are going to be aggressive. We are going to add this. We're going to go after that. I don't think he comes here for the way things have been the last couple of years. He's coming here for, yes, obviously Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and that pitching staff. But I think he would only come here if he feels like the organization is going to continue to add to that, not just sit back and say, well, there's this guy in Dayton, Cam Collier, that looks good, that should be ready in a year or two. That's not getting him here. So that's why I feel, to me, the message of Francona is, the organization is going to make some changes too, not just you come in and save the day so we can continue doing what we've been doing. We'll see. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. More off the bench when we come back.
That one went a little long.
That's fine. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett, Elliot Rearing with you here on a Wednesday. Yeah, so we were talking earlier before the show started about that 2020 Reds team. Just how good could that team have been?
Yeah.
They got hot late. They snuck into the playoffs. I think finished, a game above? Was it 2 or 1 game above 500? I actually thought that's where I started to get sour on David Bell at that time, because I'm like, okay, before you had no talent. That's why I wasn't going to poo-poo on David Bell. They just had no talent. Now you have talent, and it took everything in your power to make the playoffs, and you had an embarrassing exit out of the playoffs. That's where I started to get frustrated with Bell, but everyone kept saying, well, it's a COVID year, 60 games, no fans in the stands. There's a lot working against these teams, yada, yada, yada. So I kind of pushed back on that a little bit, whatever. But, man, if that was a full regular 162-game season, Great American Ballpark, half filled throughout the playoff push as usual. How good could that team have been? Because I think right now I really like this rotation for the Reds, but at that time they had traded for Sonny Gray. You go out and get Trevor Bauer. You had Luis Castillo. I like that bullpen. I mean, they had a little bit of everything. They had a rotation. They had a good bullpen, and they had, in theory, Castellanos. You bring in Moustakas. You had Jesse Winker and these other guys. That 20 team will always be one of the biggest what-ifs for me, because the Reds were aggressive with that. They tried to spend money to put a competitive roster together. They did go, I don't know about all in, but by Red standards, I'd say that's pretty much all in by the Cincinnati Reds standards. How good could that team have been if we have a full 2020 season, no COVID impact whatsoever?
I liked the roster. But that team, I believe, had the same issues as this season's team. They had really, really good pitching, really bad offense, if I remember correctly how that went. Towards the end of the year, they weren't scoring runs, and that's eventually what eliminated them from the playoffs. I think we lost 1-0 and 2-0 in those or whatever it was in that second game. I think it got out of hand there in the second one, but. The offense was the difference. I think if they played a full season, I don't think they make the playoffs. Just from what I saw, I think would have been probably almost to a T what happened this year. I try not to think about the 2020 season because that just upsets me. But I think that that being our only playoff series in the past 10 years now is so disappointing. It's just so disappointing because it never really felt like the playoffs to me. Like, it didn't feel like, I don't even know if they popped champagne. I don't know if I'm almost certain they didn't, right? Because of the regulations. It was just disappointing. But from your question standpoint, I don't think that team was as good as it could have been.
That pitching staff was special. There's no other way to slice that. I mean, Trevor Bauer put together a great season in the limited starts that he had, and we know what those other guys turned into very quickly after, and who's to say that they wouldn't have been, the best 1, 2, 3 in the league that year? I'd probably say that they were. So I don't know how much the lineup would have needed. Certainly would have been fun to watch that team play 162. It's one of the more exciting Reds lineups, top to bottom, staff top to bottom that we've had in at least my lifetime, or at least the recent lifetime. So definitely upsetting that we had over 100 games stolen from us of that roster, but I'm kind of with Elliot in terms that I think it helped that team's legacy, if you will. I know that was all kind of wiped away by not scoring a run in the playoffs, but I side with Elliot here, and I just don't know how great that team would be through the ups and downs of a full 162-game season because, like we've seen this year time and time again, it doesn't matter how good the pitchers are. If you allow one run, you can still lose 1-0. And I feel like that team, over the course of 162, would have done that a lot more than they did over 60.
Yeah, and it's like, you look at that lineup, too. That was one of those where I think it was kind of one of those, like, okay, we've been waiting to see when you put Jesse Winker, and you had Eugenio Suarez, and you had Tyler Stevenson, obviously during that stretch a little bit, too, and you already had your Cody Reeds and some of those guys, pitching with Michael Lorenzen. You had drafted those guys, developed those guys, called them all up, and it's like, okay, we got to add some talent. That's why they go get Castellanos. They went and added some of those pieces. They do that, and it was like, let's just see what this group can do. How much of the struggles in that 20 season was because of the elements of 20, just not playing a regular season, not no fans, just the weird travel schedules, this, that, the other. Maybe that played a role on a young team as well. I think David Bell gets fired. If what you guys are saying is true, David Bell's not being fired in 24. I think he would have been fired after that year because they spent money and you had the pitching, you had the lineup. I say you had the hitting because the hitting didn't exist, but it's like one of those things where the reason I bring this up is because like the Cardinals, everyone's shocked that yesterday their ownership and GM and everyone comes out and says that they're not going to be spending a lot of money, and everyone's kind of shocked by that. But you got to wonder if sometimes when these smaller market teams, when they do spend money and it backfires and you find yourself in a tough spot, it scares them from spending money again. Yeah. And I feel like that's what that 20 season did to the Cincinnati Reds. Why weren't they aggressive the last two off seasons? Why were they aggressive the last two trade deadlines? Well, probably because the last time they spent money at a high clip like this, it backfired on them. And they didn't trust the pieces they had in place, whether it was David Bell or others, that, okay, if we do go spend money, will David Bell get the most out of him? I don't know, but you got to fear sometimes when small market teams do get a little ballsy and decide to spend some money. If it doesn't work right away, then they're timid moving forward. I just hope that 2020 doesn't impact their aggressiveness this season. That's because that's the vibe I get. I get that they're timid. Man, we spent money on Moustakas. You guys wanted us to spend money. We spent money. We went and got Trevor Bauer. We got Sonny Gray. We gave you Moustakas. We gave you Castellanos. That didn't work. What do you want? When we spend money, it doesn't work. So that's what I'm worried about is the timidness coming from the result of that 2020 spend where it just didn't work. And I don't know about you guys. People get mad at me. I don't count 2020 at all. When people say the last playoff appearance, I skip over that. I don't know if that's right or wrong of me, but for me, I don't look at that 2020 season.
The only reason I don't skip over it because if we would have won, we wouldn't skip over it.
Well, yeah.
Okay. As long as we can all agree with that, that's fine. Yeah.
But even then, people would say, oh, yeah, like, for instance, LeBron, his legacy takes a hit with the COVID championship, right? What do people – well, LeBron, he won a championship at every spot he's been. He won a championship with Cleveland, with the Heat, and now with the Lakers. Yeah, well, in the bubble. Like, so even succeeding during that stretch, people found a way to poo-poo on it
Yeah.
to a certain extent. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no doubt.
By the way, you mentioned a couple guys there. I just want to bring up some stats. Eugenio Suarez had a 3.1 WAR this season with 30 home runs. 30 home run season for Gino. Jesse Winker had a 2 WAR this season, 14 home runs, 253 batting average, 360 OBP.
Playing playoff baseball.
And they're both playing playoff baseball.
Well,
Jesse Winker making – or
Suarez.
Suarez wasn't. But Suarez, where was he last year? I get lost in the timeline. Suarez has jumped a couple teams. But nonetheless, Winker had a meaningful hit yesterday in the postseason. So good for Jesse Winker.
Those are two guys that I'll always root for.
100%.
And Winker and Suarez,
100%.
love them both.
Usually the Twitter brigade will get on and say, look how bad these guys have been. And it's just like, whatever.
The Diamondbacks were trying to dump Suarez at the deadline for literally anything, and people wouldn't take on the contract. And after the All-Star break, he's had a phenomenal year so far. Or that stretch, at least since the All-Star break, getting to 30 home runs.
Yeah.
So happy for him.
You were about to say something?
Just the spending money thing. I think it's harder for a small market team to have patience when they have a lot of their money on the line. It's not that I'm going to compare a multi-hundred millionaire to what I experience with money. But let's say I make a bet, right, and I've got a parlay out, and it's for a lot of money. The patience for me to just stand there and wait for the bet to finish, or for the cash out. The cash out's so nice because you can't lose it all, right? We can get some of it back. We can get some of that money right back next year, and we'll have something to play with next time. And I think that's how a small market operation in a crazy way kind of operates, right? It's you have a lot of money out on the line, and when that fails, you're just trying to get some of it back to keep the line going. But I think if you had patience with it, if you continually spent on smart things, then I think it would work out. I think it works out for a majority of the teams that spend money. Constantly, it's the top spending teams in Major League Baseball that are in the postseason. That's not an accident. That's just how it works.
More times than not, teams with the most talent get there consistently, and the teams with the most talent usually mean, hey, you had to either spend to keep them there or spend to get them there. That's why the Guardians drive me nuts. That's why I'm not pulling for the Guardians, because they're kind of the opposite of that. They don't spend any money. They're bottom 5 in spending for 5 straight years. And is it a little, Guardians fans could say, well, you're just jealous because your team stinks. So there's a little jealousy there. I don't know why. I mean, there's always this negative connotation with the term jealousy. Like, yes, you have something I want. You have a playoff team. I'm very jealous of you. I don't know why we're afraid to say that. Like, Reds fans are jealous of Guardians fans. That's okay. They have something we want. We want a playoff team. But what I don't want is because the Guardians are having success and getting to the playoffs without spending money, I don't want that to be a blueprint. So that's why I'm rooting against your team. So say I'm jealous all you want. That's fine if that helps you sleep at night. But the bottom line is how you're doing it, I don't know. Good for them. It is kind of wild. I don't think, like, are the Guardians a good story or a bad story? I think they're a bad story because of that. But you're not wrong. It's just a very weird thing. I think it's bad for the sport. I think it's horrible for the sport if that's the case.
True. That's definitely true. It's not. I mean, if they can continue to put up the best record in the league or compete for without putting any money into the team, why would anyone put money into the team when you can just point to them and say they're successful? But as a fan of a small market team, I always find myself rooting for those teams.
For the little guy.
Not because of the owner and the roster, but because I see myself way more in Guardians fans than any other fan base at this point, because, like, why are they good? They have one guy, Jose Ramirez, who's incredible, and everyone else on the team just happens to also be really good for free. It's crazy what they're doing. So I always root for the small market teams, and I just feel like it's a little bit more relatable. But it also, I totally understand what
it's
annoying. It's bad for the sport.
Because here we are saying, hey, if only we had Matt McClain, who hasn't even played a full regular season's worth of games, maybe we'd be a playoff team. Like, we're sitting here saying that. Well, we had our starting pitching out for the final month. Yeah, but before that, we had the starting pitching and weren't winning games consistently either. It's like, that's what's frustrating. The Guardians, kudos to them. They find ways to get it done, and they bail out their ownership. But kudos to that's why I've always made it clear I'm not poo-pooing on the players. I'm a do more with less guy. I'm always going to go for the team that does more with less, the player that does more with less, the coach or manager that does more with less, but not the ownership. I'm not a big fan of ownership that does more with less, because you're why you have less. The ownership for the Guardians, you're why you have less. But good. I mean, they hire the right people, so kudos to them. But I'm not pulling for them. I hope they get knocked out in their first playoff series. So go Tigers, go Astros, go whatever. Guardians out. That's all. So there you go. All right, Justin Kinner, Elliot Rearing Jacobs,
Justin?
hits it with you here. What?
You say Justin Kinner?
Justin Kinner. I
Justin
did.
Kinner.
Oh my God. It was. I mean, yeah, it's with the U, right? My name's Justin.
I don't know what you're doing. I think you got your name wrong.
I've been drinking, dude. All right, more off the bench when we come back. Mouse Cop says you can't be pro Cleveland and anti Cleveland. I mean, it is pretty ass backwards.
That is kind of
big fan of the losing team in Cleveland. Hate the winning team in
Hate the
Cleveland.
team
It
that
doesn't.
wins.
I don't have a comeback for that. I just don't.
I
But
didn't even think about that.
yeah, I'm speaking of. I mean, I'm choosing my own violence. I'm choosing to be miserable.
And I know the Bengals haven't been great this year, but you also
I-
are a
oh
fan
my
of the
God, I
loser
love
team
losers,
here and
dude.
not the winning team here.
I love losers. That's why the Buckeyes balance me out. But they haven't won a title in 10 years. What is happening here?
Is Kinner a loser?
Kinner's a loser.
Clip.
I'm learning stuff about myself during this show. I feel like,
Do you need to leave?
this
Do
is
you need to think this
self-reflection
out? Yeah.
time. Mouse Cop, thank you. And then he goes back to being a word I can't say. But it is what it is. But yes, I'm learning stuff about
That's
myself.
big time.
That's how you grow. Now I'm not going to grow. I'm 5'5", 5'7". I tell people it's 5'5".
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Now it's all coming out. It's all coming out, Doc.
Oh, boy.
It's all.
Oh, this segment, Kinner spills all. Yeah.
You couldn't have got that information out of me.
I don't know. Never mind. It's a rambling Wednesday, no doubt. Want to do a little buy or sell?
love to do a little buy or sell.
HOTTOGO.
We'll get copyrighted for that. You sound too good.
Thank you.
What? Are you singing what he's putting in the chat?
Well,
He
he's doing
is
he's doing a variation of it.
Parodying a song.
I know what he's doing, and he's also telling me to go. I'll go. I have stuff
The
to
initial
do.
song is "Hot to Go," but he's saying "Got to Go."
Who's got to go?
You.
Thank you. That's what I thought. You would need me to go, I have stuff to do. I can go as far as that goes. Buy
I
or
was
sell.
thinking
This is
"Hot to Go."
a Reds buy or sell before we get to the college football side of this. The hiring of the manager will be the biggest off-season move the Reds make. Buy or sell. As we close out Reds conversation, the biggest move the Reds make.
If that's the case, we're in trouble.
Not the only move, but the biggest move, because the Reds have a habit of going after being.
So here's the thing. I can take out.
I agree with exactly what you're gonna say.
I don't think you know.
I think I do.
I think if it's Terry Francona, right? I think that's a bigger move than perhaps an expensive free agent. Saying that, I don't think they will hire Terry Francona. I think they'll hire Skip Schumacher or whoever's cheapest, and then they'll go out and sign a big free agent. So I'm going to sell that, and I'm going to say they're going to go out and get a free agent. But I want to make it very clear, it's not really about money in this situation, because I think it would be a bigger deal if they signed Terry Francona, just because I think it's interesting. But
roster as is with a couple tweaks here and there. With Terry Francona, you feel what? Because this roster coming into this past season had the majority of us feeling like they can compete for the division. So if you add Francona and don't make any major change in the offseason, how do we feel? How we feel? How we looking?
I want to make something very clear. If the roster doesn't change heading into next year, they will not make the playoffs. Saying that, do I expect them to go out and sign Anthony Santander? Do I expect them to go sign some big free agent? No, I do not. Especially after Jameer didn't work out this year. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to sell that, and I'm going to say that there's going to be a free agent they sign that's a bigger deal than the manager.
So I was exactly right.
You were?
I 100% agree.
Okay.
Yeah, no, if they sign Terry Francona, it'll be the biggest move of the offseason. And I'm not saying it's because they aren't going to go sign an expensive free agent necessarily, but just because of how excited I think everyone will be about Francona. But any other manager, I fully expect, and maybe it's just dumb optimism, because what do you root for? If you get Ellie De La Cruz off the street and strike gold with one of the best young players in baseball, as a small market team who is never going to sign a player that good in free agency, how do you not put pieces around him? So I'm just optimistic that they know what they have and they're going to act like they're trying to compete, and at least, even if it's a little bit better caliber player than Candelario in free agency. Like, I think anyone other than Francona as manager, there will be a bigger move, but Francona will be the biggest.
So if you could pick these two scenarios then, Francona, little to no moves roster-wise, or no Francona, Skip Schumacher, couple big offseason roster moves.
Wouldn't
What's
even
the better
think
option?
twice. Give me Skip in offseason moves. Wouldn't even think twice.
Yeah. It's just
Because I think that's what's going to happen. Basically, to sum up, I think that's what's going to happen is those options.
I don't believe you guys know my tier rankings of things that matter in baseball for a baseball franchise. A manager does not matter as much as the players on the field. So I'm going to take the players every single day.
And I'm not necessarily of the stance that this roster, player-wise, is as close as a lot of people are.
Yeah, 100%.
I think there's holes that need answers for us to compete, not just players getting healthy. And Sir Boy Wonder asks to define big, which I think is also crucial
That's
in here.
still fair.
Is it big Reds or is it big league-wise, which I think is definitely crucial. But I think anyone over the hype level of Candelario I consider big.
Yes, north of 20 million.
North of 20 million.
And I looked at that spend because the situations can change as we get closer. Like, I look at a spend. For instance, why... Oh, let me ask you this before we move to the Sonny Gray thing, because I see that popping up, and I saw that was on Chatterbox the other day, that the Reds are being linked to Sonny Gray again, which...
Aggressive pursuit.
I'm not against, but I guess I'm just asking why, but we'll get to that in a second. Where were you... Because I didn't know you guys a year ago at this time, or even opening day. Where were you at with this team heading in? Because I feel like it was all optimism. I mean, we had Ben Verlander on the show not too long ago. He came on my show during spring training and was like, they're winning the division. He loved everything about this team. National pundits were all in on the Reds too, not maybe being the favorites to win the World Series, but kind of like that. Keep an eye on them like you do with the Houston Texans with Stroud or Washington with Jane Daniels. Like the Reds had that type of vibe to them. Where were you at with that? Were you saying these same things, that this roster is that atrocious coming in? Because I don't feel like that was the case.
Well, coming into spring training, you still had Matt McClain. CES was healthy. TJ Frieda was healthy.
Noelvi hadn't been suspended
hadn't been suspended. So coming into spring
so this
training...
roster is not as bad as you're saying then?
But now things have changed.
Can you rely on those guys to be healthy is the question now.
Or to not do steroids.
Right.
I think...
Or be good while not doing steroids.
I mean, Marte went a
be
whole
good.
back half of the season without doing it. Give him some credit. I mean,
That's true.
Yeah, it's true.
That's true.
I mean,
He did
he's hitting
play
500 there.
He did play the games. He did play the games. Not
That's
well.
a step.
Not well, mind you, but he did play the games.
Yep.
Yeah, I was high. I thought with a healthy roster, because even my what I said in my brain was, if you went out and signed a big free agent bat, where would they play? Because coming into this year, you had right field filled out. Jake Fraley, Will Benson, that's set position. You have left field filled out. Spencer Steer. You had center field filled out with TJ Friedel. Shortstop was filled out. Second base was filled out. You had third base filled out, and with CES, you had first base filled out, and you already had a catcher. So
Then you had Candelario in India off
Correct.
the bench in the infield.
Correct. So what really big move did I need to make coming into this year? In my mind, I thought, and this was obviously it wasn't the right thought, but I was like, yeah, we could maybe survive. We could stand pat and do it. I was wrong. It's not good enough. The roster is not good enough. You can't win with only rookies. It doesn't work that way in Major League
But if
Baseball.
they're out there, like we got to keep remembering, like we act like these guys have an injury history because they got hurt in their first year in the majors. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just like, I think we're
McClain
jumping the
kinda
gun.
does, though.
Is
Playing
there
2 injuries in 2
McClain
seasons.
does, yeah.
because
He
like
got
Tyler
hurt at
Stevenson
UCLA.
got banged up a lot early and then had a very good year this year. We didn't even talk about him hardly at all, which is a good thing from that. I guess where I just try to stay out of the injury zone in my mind. Like,
That's smart.
I look at it how they're going to be with those guys out there. So if they're out there, this isn't a bad roster.
Well-
if they're not out there, they're injured, and it's like I don't know how as a front office you account for that.
That's how I've been operating, because I think as Reds, we talk all the time about how many pieces we need to add, and if those guys are
Yeah.
healthy, the amount of pieces we need to add does drastically fall, but people are scared about them playing 162. I'm willing to put all my eggs in that basket and gamble, because that's the Reds' best chance. Those guys playing 162 and being out there with the Matt McClain, Noelvi going back to at least a shadow of what he was as a rookie.
Yep.
Tyler Stevenson becoming a no-doubt starting catcher, the outfield coming into form a little bit, maybe one piece there, definitely one piece in the outfield. But I'm willing to gamble on health. And whenever anyone says, well, you got to keep guys for depth and everything like that, you're absolutely right if guys get hurt. But I don't think the Reds are willing to operate with a payroll where you can have a great starting lineup and great depth. I just don't think that's somewhere the Reds are going to live. So that goes back to the India conversation. Is he a great depth piece if McLean gets hurt? Absolutely. But is that also taking up a roster spot with probably a decent chunk of money that the Reds are going to give somewhere else? Because they're never going to be a $300 million team. So every single tiny contract, no matter how small it is, cuts into how much they're going to be willing to spend. And I think at this point with this Reds core, I think I'm more than ever just willing to gamble on health.
Like so if they go, the money that they do spend will be utility pieces, will be for depth purposes.
Right.
I guess what I'm saying is kind of that you're not wrong for being fearful of all the injuries, this, that, and the other. But the bottom line is the chances of every single one of those guys being healthy, like, God, don't get mad at me. But, like, it's unfortunate the luck that teams have. It's like, man, if we could just have, next year you'll have everyone healthy and then Ellie, something happens to him. And then it's like, well, damn, if you could have had healthy Ellie from last year with the healthy group this year, how good is this team? You just never know. It's always going to be, it's a big roster. Someone's always going to be banged up. It's just what's behind them. The Reds have to be better, more so, not just in the offseason, but reactionary-wise. Can't just keep calling guys up every time someone goes down. Like, what's the plan to go, you know what I mean? Like, they never had a plan when all 5 pitchers went down. It was just, well, Rhett Lauder, we're going to call you up significantly earlier than what we thought. They could have really ruined him early if that didn't work out. I don't know. I guess all I'm saying is I back and forth. I feel like this team's far away, and then I think back to where we were at the beginning of the season. The vibe was different. They're not that far away. I just don't know. It has to be somewhere in the middle.
That's fair.
They can't just take this exact same roster into next year. But we're going to learn. I think the reason India, I'm not as out on him being gone, is because of that. I think they don't. They, in the back of their head, we don't want to operate as if we're going to be injured, but we kind of need India if we are.
Yeah, no, and I
from
like
that perspective.
I just hope my biggest fear for this offseason is that Jonathan India makes the switch to the outfield in the early spring training, and then we get to opening day, and left fielder Jonathan India, right fielder Jonathan India is the big free agency signing. That's my nightmare. It's like, hey, here's this piece we're adding to the roster. It's a guy that's already here.
Yeah.
He's just moving positions to bolster the lineup. That's my fear with this Reds ownership, and it's not something I'd put past them to say. Or Rhys Hines hits 500 in spring training, and our big offseason addition is adding guys that are in the minors, which would not be something I'm for unless that means an extension for 44, which would make me very, very happy.
Yeah, they can't go into they can't go into next season with this same exact route. The outfield's not good enough, and the infield without Matt McLean as of right now is not good enough either. So, I would go out
Healthy, they're not good enough. Healthy, they're not good enough.
Correct.
No, that's all I wanted to. Is
correct.
that, like, keep going. I just meant like
the
okay,
right
that's,
field position when healthy is not good enough in Major League Baseball. No, I love Jake Fraley, love him. Can't hit lefties. Will Benson can't hit anybody. So that position needs to be fixed. Third base right now needs to be fixed. No offense to Noelvi Marte, but if that's the player you have next year, you have a problem. First base, I'd also look at first base. First base, again, didn't have a Major League player. If we bring back Ty France, I won't be upset. I'm not going to be angry about it. It's just a blah. It's just blah. If you want to bring back Ty France, fine. But the roster needs some work. I don't think they're that far away. I think you could be further away. How about that? I think you could be further away than what the Reds are. I think the Reds aren't as far away as some franchises in Major League Baseball right now.
Remember, they were supposed to lose 100 games last year, which means theoretically we're probably supposed to lose about 90-plus games this upcoming season, which means – or this past season. Like, technically, we're out of these questions about Noelvi Marte and others. They were supposed to have 2 or 3 years to just play at the Major League level and get better. The problem is they performed right away, and the expectations came right now. And now we're having questions like, you talk about third base, they got to fix third base. Well, the plan for Noelvi Marte was to get a season or two out there to get better, to know what you have. Now the front office is in a position where they have to make quick decisions, maybe prematurely. We have to know if Noelvi Marte is good enough or not. He might be, but I don't know if he's going to get the full amount of time that the front office thought, hey, we're about to rebuild. These young guys should have 2 or 3 years of getting to play 162-plus games yearly to figure this out. And now we need them to be finished products right off the bat. And now that's putting us in position. Do we move on from them or not? It's a good problem to have, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird one.
Worse problems, I guess.
Yep. Before we move on to college football, Sonny Gray, why are the Reds being linked to him? What is going on with that story? Because I haven't even looked into that.
They were close last year, and then I think there was a report that maybe his wife didn't want to come. Is that the report that I saw? I don't know. I don't know. I don't
So
know
are they
enough.
saying
But
keep
there
your
was a
wife
link.
away? Or
There
what?
was a link coming into last year about it, and then it didn't work out. So this year they just want him back. Bring Sonny Gray home.
But you said aggressive pursuit.
That was the quote I saw. Aggressive pursuit of Sonny Gray, who has a full no trade clause with your biggest rival. So, not sure how that would.
Yeah.
And if he didn't want to come here in free agency last year, how is he waiving his no trade clause to come here?
And your biggest rival, who they don't know what their pursuit, what they're going to be doing off season wise. Basically, just telling their fan base we're not spending money. So why would you unload a talented arm for no reason? Yeah, I just thought that was such a weird story.
And also,
if he
what
comes back,
are we
great.
giving up? What are we giving up to the Cardinals for Sonny Gray?
Yeah.
Are we going to send good prospects to St. Louis for an aging starting pitcher with injury problems? Feels like we have enough starting pitchers with injury problems.
I said, they get him, great. That's cool. I mean, I'm not against it, but I'm not for them going after him either, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. So, nonetheless, college football, buy or sell when we come back. Yep. Good. I gotta go. I'll be right back.
Oh!
Whoa!
Oh! We're back. Nick Kirby asked how Sonny Gray would not make the Reds significantly better. He might. He probably would. He definitely would. But we're on to ad reads.
If he played.
That's true. We're on to ad reads. Got to pay the bills. Casey likes taking days off, so I got to sit over here and pay bills. Someone's got to work at this company, right, Elliot?
That's right.
Bengals report, which I'm sure is coming up. Reds report. Bengals report. Bearcats report, right? Is it Bearcat and Bengal, right?
Bearcat and Bengal.
All right, so that was the Bengals report next after college football talk.
Yes.
Bengals Report's proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, we deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world. From mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions, we help businesses enhance efficiency and
Productivity.
that sure is right, Ellie-Roo.
Thank you.
Visit Encore.tech, where your path to innovation begins here. Shuffle that order a little bit, but you know what we always got over here.
Ooh.
I mean, that was phenomenal, and I didn't get it on camera.
Ooh. Well, they might have seen it. They might have seen it in that.
They could have seen it behind me. All right, we'll
But-
try to clip that.
I mean, this is. By the way, this is how I caught this.
That's impressive stuff.
It's pretty wild.
Pawnee water, best water in the world. Not one rock.
Wrong camera.
Wrong camera.
Wrong
Not one
camera.
rock. Not one rock in
That's
this water.
right.
That's all water right there, and it tastes great. It tastes great. Natural limestone filtration. It's the best water in the world. Mrs. Rearing got herself some Pawnee, didn't she?
That's right. I came home last night. My mom came home and she was at a store, and this isn't a biased thing. She went to Sullivan's. I love my mom, but I don't believe she's ever watched this show, so she wouldn't know Pawnee water from our show. But she went into a store by us in the west side of Cincinnati, came back with a bottle of Pawnee water. I said, "Mom, are you pranking me?" And she said, "No, why? What bottle of water did you just get?" And she said, "Pawnee." I said, "You know that's the sponsor of our show, right?" She said, "No, I didn't know that." And so she just saw the bottle, and it looked better than all the other bottles lined up, and that's a fact.
Well, I'm sure she opened the fridge door in the gas station or convenience store and said, all these bottles have rocks in them.
She shook them all, and they all had rocks.
They all had
that's
rocks.
right.
Yeah, known rocks in the natural limestone filtration. On to Game Time, the official ticket sponsor of
got
Off
this.
the Bench. I love Game Time. Game Time's cheapest tickets, most all-in pricing, no fees. It's the best place to buy tickets. They have tickets for every event. Even after the event starts, Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. There's super deals within the app. I opened up. I'm looking at the Bengals game this weekend. If you're getting sick of me on the streams, go get you some tickets on Game Time. Get down to Paycor Stadium. Under $300 on the Game Time Picks all-in pricing. That's a pretty good deal for a Bengals-Ravens game. That's two legit competitors you're going to get to see go at it at Paycor Stadium for under $300 thanks to Game Time. That's phenomenal. $240 I'm seeing right here. Great seats on the Game Times app. You can customize your spot and see 360-degree views from your seat to see exactly where you're sitting. You can pick the section and the seat. The Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Toggling the all-in pricing feature shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from your seat within the app before you buy. They also have the lowest price guarantee. Game Time is the lowest price, where they will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time's ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
What time?
Game time.
Hey, Elliot.
Game time.
That's right. It's game time. Other housekeeping tonight. I know Chatterbox Bengals usually a Tuesday, Thursday game day show, but later tonight, we're going to have an exclusive interview with Gridiron Grading, a great draft account on Twitter. Is going to be coming on the show to talk about the Bengals' struggles on draft night over the last few years and why the defense's struggles early in this year is not quite as much of a surprise as some people might be thinking when you look back at the level of talent the Bengals have been drafting in the mid to late rounds. So a super exciting conversation coming up tonight. That'll be on YouTube as soon as we get done and then posted in podcast form wherever you listen to us. And then I know Elliot is plugging Thursday.
Thursday, we are live at Champions Grill. That's Champions Grill with an E on Work Road with an E. West side of Cincinnati. Please, if you haven't... Thanks, Jacob.
2 E's.
2 E's. So if you haven't seen us yet, please come out and see us. It's a fun time. We're going to stay for Thursday Night Football as well. So from 7 to 8, it'll be Chatterbox Bengals with myself, Jacob, and Casey. And then after that, we will be staying for the Thursday night game. So come by, see us. Some big news regarding that. So it is a Bengals ticket giveaway. So it's during the podcast. It'll be some point during the podcast. I think Miller Lite's the sponsor, and you can win Ravens Bengals party deck tickets for the October 6th game against the Baltimore Ravens. So you must be 21, by the way, to win those tickets. Must be 21 to win the tickets. And also, so please come by. Ticket giveaway, Chatterbox Bengals. Ticket giveaway, Chatterbox Bengals. 7 to 8. See everybody there. It should be a fun time. Bengals got their first win. I expect to see some cheers for the first time this season. We haven't had a good cheer at Champions yet.
That's
so everybody
right.
come by and say hello and get some food and drinks.
We do have breaking news,
And
but
win Bengals
we'll
tickets.
bring it in on the radio side, so we'll just go to break, and then we'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
It's the Bengals one, right?
That's right.
Cool. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Oh, sorry. My bad. When you pointed at me, I was like, huh?
There you go.
All right. My bad. My bad on that. But we
Oh,
are
God.
back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wingham and Dayton. Spent a lot of time on Reds today. We're going to transition to some college football, but we did have some Bengals breaking news, and, of course, our guy Jacob here. Proud co-host of Chatterbox
That's
Bengals.
right.
Of course, this is big news. One of the worst defenses
Yeah.
in the NFL. Well, reinforcements are coming very, very early as well today at practice.
Yeah, big time news for the Bengals defensive line. Obviously, an issue that we've been talking about ad nauseum both here and on Chatterbox Bengals. The pass rush and run defense has been very poor, both getting a massive boost about 1 minute ago. The Bengals have cleared Miles Murphy, the first-round pick from a few years back, a really exciting player out of Clemson, a guy who was projected to go in the top 15 or 20 and then fell all the way down to the Bengals, and a guy that a lot of scouts and front offices really liked coming into the draft. So someone I'm really excited for to take over at a position the Bengals need a lot of production from. Sam Hubbard has been terrible, and if Miles Murphy can slide in there and be much better, the floor for this Bengals defense raises drastically. But a slightly smaller name, but I think even bigger news, McKinley Jackson is set to return to practice and is designated for return from the reserved injury list. McKinley Jackson was late-round pick, a nose tackle out of Mississippi State in this year's draft, and he's a guy that is built to play nose. He's built to play that DJ Reader position where the Bengals don't have any pieces right now. That is such a great thing to have him back a little bit earlier than expected. These guys are going to be guys that we expect to lean on the defensive front for a long time to come in Cincinnati. So to get them back when we have guys like Zach Carter, Sam Hubbard, Joseph Osai really struggling to rush the passer and stop the run, it's going to be great. I mean, we're relying on Lawrence Guy, a guy that got here a week and a half ago, to play 45% of the defensive snaps in a game against the Panthers. And now you have McKinley Jackson and Miles Murphy back. You're going to be able to get an actual rotation going through up front. That's going to be great news for the Bengals.
There is not one scary team in the AFC right now. Outside, like Houston's about what we thought they were. Or they, I was very high on them. You thought some regression would happen, but still thought they'd be okay.
Yeah.
Like Houston's about I think Houston might be the only team in the AFC that is actually playing up to the expectation that they had coming into the year. That's the only team. Now I know the Chiefs are 4-0. They're defending back-to-back, Super Bowl champions, but I think we can all say with or without Rashee Rice, they still have been playing very questionable. Like they've been very beatable. Yeah. They're very vulnerable, right? The Bengals, that offense has just been dominating for 3 straight weeks, and I think they're going to have a chance to continue that against Baltimore coming up. I'm very intrigued by this Bengals-Ravens matchup because I do think that the winner of that matchup is going to be viewed as the top team in the AFC. Sorry for skipping a step here, Jake, but it leads into it perfectly here. Like, what I mean by that is the Ravens just absolutely dominated what happened with the Bills this past weekend. Dominated, right? So they're getting all the love. Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. Man, you had Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry has been better than I even thought he was going to be. I knew what potential the Ravens had offensively with him being there, but the fact that he looks like the guy he was with the Titans. I think I was like, I'm not going to go all in on the Ravens because if Derrick Henry, there's a reason the Titans moved on. It was right of them to move on because they were embarking on a new path. I get that, but man, I didn't think that the Ravens were getting this guy. This is still the guy that he was with the Tennessee Titans, and that's just a scary 2-headed monster. But defensively, they hit the Bills hard. They hit Josh Allen hard. But I'm still questioning just how good the passing attack of the Bills is. And they didn't look great against the Ravens, but the Ravens have the sixth worst passing defense in the NFL. Well, that's the Bengals' strength. All right, and then you have the Ravens, the best running team in football. That's the biggest Bengals weakness. This matchup is very intriguing because the biggest weakness of both defenses, the other team has the ultimate strength to go against that. It's really going to come down to, I think, the final play. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, which is usually untraditional for AFC North matchup. I think this is going to be a weird type of shootout. I'm not sure who has the upper hand, but I do think that the winner of this will be viewed as the hottest team in the AFC. And that could be a 2-3 Cincinnati Bengals team if they come out over the Ravens. I just think that there's no other offense playing better than the Bengals. I can't think of another offense that's playing better than the Bengals right now. The Ravens are playing dominant offense in a different way. But overall, as far as the run and the pass game, there's not a team that's playing more complete offense than the Cincinnati Bengals right now. And if they knock off the Ravens, I'm looking at the AFC and I'm like, the Chiefs have question marks even at 4-0. I don't think they look good at 4-0. They're good. They don't look elite at 4-0. The Bengals are playing elite offensively. I'm looking around the AFC. If the Bengals beat the Ravens, it might be one of those weird things where a 2-3 Bengals team is the hottest team in the AFC 5 games into the season.
I mean, the guy you're always comparing the top team in the AFC to is the Chiefs. And the Bengals went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in Arrowhead and fell because of a field goal after a pass interference penalty that's still being talked about 3 weeks later. So I think the gap between, funny enough, after a 1-3 start for the Bengals, the gap between the Bengals and the Chiefs is the smallest margin of any of their losses.
Yeah.
The Commanders dominated that game. The Patriots dominated that game. So I don't know what to think of the Bengals. Maybe they're just going to continue to play up to their competition and down to their competition and just always have close games no matter if they're playing a Super Bowl contender or a team that's picking number 1 in the draft. And if that's the case, then hopefully they get out on the right side of this one. And it's going to be a 35-42 shootout because that's absolutely what I expect. You touched on it there. The Ravens' defensive weakness is the Bengals' defense or offensive strength. And the Bengals' defensive weakness is the Ravens' offensive strength. Well, there's one more stat that goes in the Ravens' favor. The Ravens lead the league in early down yards per play. Bengals outside the top 25.
Oh, boy.
So it's going to come down to those first and second downs, the run downs, the short passes. Are the Bengals going to be able to tackle? The first guy there has to tackle against the Baltimore Ravens. We're not just talking about Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers on the outside is great at making guys miss. So I'm absolutely worried about our defensive tackling, which has been a major issue so far this season. But at the end of the day, these reinforcements being activated off the injured list coming into this game. It could not be better timing because we're going to need all the help we can get in the front seven because this rushing attack with the Ravens is legit. I mean, think about how much we struggled with the read option game of Jaden Daniels in his third career start. Lamar Jackson's been doing that for almost a decade now at the best level in the entire league. So I'm very, very worried about this matchup. The speed on the outside, Everett Henry says Justice Hill, absolutely. He's been in Baltimore forever. We've seen him plenty, and he is a massive contributor still with Derrick Henry on that roster. So they have the horses to keep legs fresh, which is what's really scary. The way you get to Derrick Henry is you wear him down. He is older, and he does have a lot of miles on his tires, so you have to wear him down. And somehow he still seems to get better on carries 21, 22, and 23. At the end of the game, he seems to pick it up, but the fact that they have change of pace backs with him as well makes that running attack just so much scarier. I think if I'm the Bengals, I'm putting 9, 10 guys in the box.
Yep.
If Rashad Bateman has 120 yards and beats me over the air, fine. I'll let him. I'll put all my faith in Cam Taylor-Britt for one more week. Say, hey, look, you're supposed to be the number one corner. We can't let him beat us on the ground. If you lose to Derrick Henry, I am so much more upset than if you lose to Rashad Bateman and
Because
Zay
you
Flowers.
know it's coming.
Exactly.
How about the Bills, though? This is the start to their season, quarterback-wise. I mean, already 4 weeks in, they've already played Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen. They're playing Joe Burrow this week, and they'll have Jaden Daniels next week. And then, then they'll have Deshaun Watson after that. But that's besides the point. But that's a very tough stretch of quarterbacks to run into. Baker Mayfield. So Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, the next 3 quarterbacks that they're playing. So the Ravens have gone, so when we talk about their passing defense not looking great, I don't think there's another team out there that has gone up against as good a quarterbacks as what they have at this point. The Bengals, though, have touched on a few of those as well, right off the bat, too. So, nonetheless, I'm intrigued by this matchup because, I started thinking about it. We're making too much about the record. I think a lot of times the record, that record on most seasons, 1-3, that's a hell of a hole to dig out of. But the AFC's not good. As of right now, it's not good. Right. The Bills look very vulnerable. The Dolphins are bad. The Patriots are bad. I'm looking at the East right now, and the Jets, there's something going on there. They're in the talks to get Devontae Adams, so we'll keep an eye on that. Cleveland's looking at Devontae. There's a lot of teams looking at Adams, right? You look at the North. The Bengals 1-3, Browns 1-3, the Steelers 3-1, but they're still, we're not sold on them completely yet. And the South has been bad. The West has been bad. So I don't know. The East, the Bengals, if there was ever a year to start out with this poorly, they have the offense that is playing the best out of all these teams in this division this conference outside the Ravens. So I'm intrigued. I think the winner of the Bengals-Ravens matchup will be looked at as the face of the AFC coming out of this weekend.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's crazy after the start for the Bengals that we're in the conversation even, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you told me after the Commanders lost that at any point in time this season we'd be talking about the Bengals even potentially being the top team, quote unquote, in the AFC, then I'd call you crazy. But here we are, and I don't think it's crazy to say that if you beat the Ravens, you have a runway in front of you if you get through this Ravens game with a win where you can get all the way back. Like the Bengals can get all the way back if they get this win. You just go take care of business in New York, and then you're 3-3, and who cares about the start anymore? You're playing on an even playing field with everyone else. So this game could not be more crucial for the Bengals, and it feels like the 3rd or 4th week in a row. We keep saying it's a massive, massive deal to win this game, and I think that's just a product of starting how you start. You just have to win. You put yourself in a very, very tough position for the rest of the season when you start in a hole like the Bengals have for many years in a row now, and it seems like they're fine with it, and I guess we'll see on Sunday how fine they are with it. Yep. But you mentioned Devontae Adams there earlier in the show. He released his wish list for the Raiders of where he would like to go. Only 2 teams off the wish list were leaked, neither of which are a surprise whatsoever. The New York Jets, number 1, the New Orleans Saints, number 2.
Really?
Well, he requested a trade to the Raiders to play with his college quarterback and roommate, Derek Carr.
Oh, duh. Okay, I was literally in my head, I'm like, who's at New Orleans right now? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Derek Carr, the quarterback of the Saints, and Devontae Adams, old wide receivers coach Keith Williams, also the Saints wide receivers coach. So a lot of connections to New Orleans. Obviously, the Rodgers and Hackett connection to New York. So we'll see what happens there. It seems like Aaron Rodgers hates Garrett Wilson, so you got to get him a new number 1
Is that like
receiver.
a legit beef thing? Like, is
he
that
won't
like
throw him the football? Like, I don't know what else it is.
You look at that, and then those videos that popped out from camp, I didn't really overreact to those because I'm like, I mean, your quarterback, wide receiver, they're fighting through, but like it does look like now there's beef between the two, and Garrett Wilson's too damn good. Aaron Rodgers is very, very good, but man, Aaron Rodgers, you're old Aaron Rodgers now. I don't know if you have that. I mean, I don't know. The Jets, this is like with the Browns, like with the Deshaun Watson argument. Like everyone does this, man, the Jets made a mistake going after. No, they didn't. When you're a franchise like the Browns and the Jets, like you've been a quarterback away. I mean, it's all about the quarterback. So you do everything you can to go get the quarterback. It doesn't work out. It just always seems to always not work out for those teams.
Yeah.
Like Aaron Rodgers, if it doesn't work out with the Jets, that's wild to me. But if there is beef between him and Wilson, that's insane. And you're not trading Wilson for Adams, or are you?
Would you?
Would you?
The Raiders said they need a second-round pick plus.
If you're the Jets, I mean,
if you're 25 teams make that trade.
If I'm Garrett Wilson, I have to go to the Raiders.
I know the Raiders wouldn't do it, but how are the Chiefs not on the phone with them right now, giving him 3 firsts?
I
mean, Antonio Pierce won't give him in division because he's an old-fashioned Raiders football guy, head coach. He's not going to trade a star player in the division, but what team needs a wide receiver more than the Chiefs? What team's in a Super Bowl window more than the Chiefs? What team can afford to give draft capital more than the Chiefs? I don't know. That would certainly be very, very scary. I've also seen people throwing out the Ravens. Their roster looks really, really good without a true number 1 receiver if you put Devontae Adams in there.
You had that with Derrick Henry. Yeah. And Lamar's like, all right, y'all keep talking about Joe Burrow.
Just keep him in the NFC.
Talking about Patrick
Keep him in the NFC. New Orleans sounds beautiful to me.
I'm not going to lie to you. Let me ask you this. If Devontae Adams does go to the Jets, I know this sounds silly. It doesn't do anything for me.
I'd have to see it for a week or two.
I'm already high on the Jets to begin with. Like, I still think that, like, I've been giving them, like, I've had them high on my list all season anyways. Yeah. I still think they're fighting through something now. I think they'll get it right at some point, but I don't think it makes them super scary. I don't think it closes the gap between them and the Chiefs or the Bengals or Ravens or whoever. I think it keeps – they're just going to be – that's a team that will be in the mix. I look at them as the Buccaneers, that team that's just going to be in the mix. I don't think anyone's looking at the Jets to win the Super Bowl. I'm not looking at the Buccaneers to win a Super Bowl, but I am looking at both of those teams as in the mix, and I think that's what the Jets would be more so with Devontae Adams.
Would adding Devontae Adams put them over the Bills in the AFC East for you?
If they keep Garrett Wilson.
If they keep Garrett Wilson, they would? Okay.
Now, but Devontae Adams, who is he as a receiver still? Because it's been a while since he's been dominant because he hasn't been put in a position to be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing that the Jets do have in their back pocket with all these names that keep popping up is they have a pretty good player who's not even on the roster that they're trying to move as well, Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
They're trying to trade Hassan Reddick. So you could trade Hassan Reddick in a mid-round pick for Devontae Adams, not lose any production while the Raiders add a pretty good player. So I don't know. It's definitely an interesting saga that I don't think a lot of people expected this early in the season.
Elliot, hi.
Hello.
You haven't talked in like 10 minutes.
That's
our
all
bad. We just
Spangles, baby.
I see Nick Kirby in the chat. Bally Sports Ohio might be dead. There's a lot of talk about Bally Sports Ohio. Do we know what's going on right now?
I just looked. I couldn't find anything, so I don't know where I don't know where the article is, but I looked on Twitter. I didn't see anything.
Nick Kirby put in quotations: Bally Sports is rejecting all of its MLB team contracts other than the Atlanta Braves. By the way, that's a huge deal if that happens to Cincinnati. We had a meeting with the Reds last year, and Phil Castelli, as part of with Wing AM in Dayton, we're a Reds affiliate, and man, like there was a lot going on. Like they were doing everything they could to stay with Bally because that money that would impact the by Tito. If something happens here, you're not getting Tito Francona. I'm just saying, like that money is a big deal to Cincinnati. You would lose so much money going to the MLB route for have them stream your games. As far as that's concerned.
Remember, Amazon used to be a option. Is that still in the cards, or?
That's what I mean. We're gonna when we log off, I'll take a look at some of the stuff that's going on. But man,
so it's Evan Drelich. Sorry if I said that name wrong. He is a senior writer of The Athletic. He says Diamond says in court it plans to continue broadcasting just one of the remaining teams it has with the MLB. That would be the Atlanta Braves. The 11 other MLB teams and 9 still under contract with Diamond will either have to negotiate a new deal with Diamond or go somewhere else. MLB's lawyer in court says this is the first the MLB is hearing of this plan. Quote, we have no information about what is being done. Jim Bromley, lawyer for the MLB, said, we've had no opportunity to review, and now we're in front of the court and being asked to make our comments.
All right, well, let's pick up on this when we come back.
The MLB was just sandbagged. Quote.
Poor MLB. Let's talk about this
poor
more.
Manfred.
Yeah, poor Rob Manfred. He's focusing on this tournament that you win that medal trophy for, and he
That's
gets
right.
blindsided. Poor guy. Let's pick up on this more when we come back again off the bench. Presented by United Dairy Farmers, Justin Kinner, Jacob Tissett, and Elliot Rearing. We'll be right back. All right, and we welcome you back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Last year, when all the talk of the Valley sports issues were going on, I remember we had a meeting with the Reds talking about the fact that, yes, they have options, that they're not worried about not being visible in the 2024 season.
They'd probably be more visible, no?
But as far as going the MLB route?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's all about the money.
No, 100%.
Yeah, so they would, I think, have made $30 million, or it was a significant number less if they went that route. Which is why it said that. I see Nick Kirby saying Reds getting their own rights would be great for everyone, Reds fans and ownership. Be that as that may, as far as the immediate fix, this could not be a worse time for this to potentially happen if that's the case, because that money matters coming in. I've always said, too, one of the biggest problems with baseball or sports is those media rights deals, because you're guaranteed that money coming in no matter what the product is on the field. To where back then it was, man, we have to have good players out on the field to get people to come to the ballparks because we make money off tickets and everything in the ballpark. Now they're getting this money up front, and that's what they budget everything off of. So there's no, you know what I mean? They don't have to put on a good product because they're going to get that TV deal anyway. Bottom line is, yes, Nick, that's your big picture, yes, but for the immediate impact, this isn't a good thing for any of those teams. And they said, I guess, every team but the Braves?
Every team but the Braves.
Every team but the Braves. Interesting. I don't know. I don't
think it's good for next year if this happens. I don't think it's good for next year. Maybe in the distant future would this be good? But yeah, if you're looking to spend money this year, we're going to need the TV revenue. So not good.
Difference between Luke Maile, the player, backup catcher, player manager, and
They
Tito
edit
Francona.
They edit that list of eliminated managers.
Yeah, they're talking about in the chat right now that nobody cares about Valley. I agree. I don't. Valley sports is whatever. I want every fan to be able to watch Reds games and the blackouts, and let's just have everybody have that ability. So that would be a big first step, getting rid of this. But in the short term, as Nick Kirby just said in there, wouldn't be great.
And the problem is there's always going to be a
Wouldn't
window.
be great right now.
In that transition, there's always going to be a window where it hits the Reds hard. I just don't want it to be this window. I just don't want it to be this offseason, because this is a very important offseason as far as that's concerned. But is what it is. We'll keep an eye on that. But poor Rob Manfred, just getting blindsided.
Yeah, poor him. The billionaires.
Jacob with Chatterbox Bengals, of course. Again, that was big news. So, again, just reiterate the breaking news. We're going to close out with the college football buy or sell. But a couple pieces coming back for Cincinnati, and I know you and Craig will talk about it on Chatterbox Bengals.
Yeah, Miles Murphy activated off of the injury list, and McKinley Jackson designated to return as well. Former first-round pick in Murphy, and McKinley Jackson, a later-round pick this year. Both pieces that are expected to contribute massively to the Bengals' defensive line that has struggled greatly through 4 weeks. So a massive boost to the Bengals when we continue to sit here and ask, what can we add to this defense to make it better? The only options we have are the guys that are hurt right now. So getting them back, we're going to get a chance to actually see what this defense is, how we have to attack the offseason that is so far away, and just how on this season still is, in all honesty. Because if these guys come in and the defense still looks exactly the same, I don't know how much optimism I have for a Super Bowl run. But if you add Miles Murphy and McKinley Jackson, you get Sheldon Rankins and B.J. Hill back healthy, and the defense looks like a different unit, then we're all the way right back. So massive, massive addition for the Bengals, just more in terms of seeing what you got than anything else, because we haven't seen Miles Murphy play a whole lot, obviously, in his rookie year. Haven't seen McKinley Jackson at all. So two guys I'm super, super excited to get back in uniform.
Other football note here that I thought was interesting, the fewest punts this season. We know how efficient Washington has been. Washington, they're averaging 1 punt a game. They have punted the ball 4 times total all season. The 49ers have punted the ball 9 times, and the Cincinnati Bengals are tied for the second least punts on the season at 9 as well. So that's how efficient offensively they've been, to tie into what we were talking about earlier. We know that this team, that's how bad the defense has been.
Yeah.
That with an offense with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and that revamped offensive line and the run game, it's all about how bad the defense has been. That's how bad that defense is that's overshadowed how good the offense has been. because we talk about the Bengals being bad. I know we got in the debate the other day with the Burrow thing, but whatever. Like, the Bengals aren't bad. That defense is bad. The Bengals, 9 punts 4 games into the season, tied for the second fewest punts all season. That offense is getting on the field, and it's rare that they come off the field without putting points up on the board.
The Bengals aren't getting sacked. They aren't turning the ball over. They aren't punting. And they're losing football games.
And they're 1-3.
It's insane. This is everything I've asked the offense to look like for the last 4 years, finally coming into focus. We have an O-line that we invested in, playing like the O-line we invested in. We have a running back room that we took a gamble on, in all honesty, that looks phenomenal so far, and weapons that are coming back alive, and the defense can't get 2 stops in a game. So that's why these injury reactivations are so big for me, because it's the only hope we have left.
Because they've been close games.
Right.
So we could act like it's not, the defense is so bad, one guy's not going to make a difference, but one guy, one improvement at one position, that could be.
Yeah.
It very well could be. And again, as we talked about, the AFC, it's vulnerable right now. The Bengals could easily have a stranglehold on this. Maybe not record-wise for a while, but I think they beat the Ravens. There's no other team that looks even as close to as efficient as what the Bengals do offensively. Sure, the Chiefs are 4-0. There was a stat I saw something. They put a graphic up the other day that Brock Purdy has beat out Patrick Mahomes in every major statistical category since Game 1 of last year's season to now. Brock Purdy has been a better quarterback statistically than Patrick Mahomes from Game 1 of last year up until Game 4 of this season. And that's wild to me. Like, the Chiefs are vulnerable. Obviously, they're back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions, but there's not as far as offensively, there are teams that are passing them. And their offense that's been efficient is getting worse because of injuries. We'll see what happens there.
Everyone's asking questions about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles right now. You compare those numbers to Patrick Mahomes. Hurts has been better.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how much winning cures. It's the same thing I was talking about with the Reds. When you're 4-0, no one dissects the numbers. No one talks about how bad you've been. That game against the Bengals, if you want to talk about someone almost costing their team that game, it's Patrick Mahomes. He threw 3 picks. One of them got called back, but
he's paid not to.
Right. Exactly. No, yeah. It's that's the thing at the end of the day. If you have the win at the end of the game, when the clock hits zeros, if you have more points than the other team, no one cares about your stat line. And that's what we're seeing with the Chiefs now, because until they win, who cares how he looks? Or until they lose, who cares how he looks, right?
Yep.
If they're going to keep winning games, they can do it however they want to do it. But if Rashee Rice is going to miss significant time, they're going to need Xavier Worthy to take a massive step very quick or go get somebody, because Travis Kelce doesn't have it anymore to be a legitimate number 1 receiving threat. He can be a good 2. I still have faith in that, but I don't think he's the dominant guy that they had when they let Tyreek Hill walk and still won a Super Bowl. So they either need Rice to have a miracle leg recovery, which it seems like somehow he's doing, or they need to go out and make a move in order to stay on top.
It just reminds me of, like, with the Reds when they have that season where, man, scoring a ton of runs, knocking the ball to the ballpark, but they can't. Their pitching is just garbage. And then you'll have those seasons where the pitching is just top notch. You have everything you need. You have a great rotation, great bullpen, but you can't score a run to save your life. That's the Cincinnati Bengals right now. They're not having a problem hitting the ball. They're not having a problem scoring runs. They just they can't get outs, right? Like, and that's the Bengals, as a whole right now. Scoring a ton of touchdowns. They're not punting the ball. They're efficient. They're running the ball, doing everything. But my God, that defense has been bad. You don't even need average defense. You just need not as bad defense to win this division or this conference right now.
I used to say be top 20. I just want top 25.
As of right now,
just
1
don't
month
be
in.
bottom 7.
Yeah.
Until another team in the AFC outside of the Bengals, Ravens starts to fix something. I think the Jets can fix something, whatever. But right now, there's no other team that is as dominant on one side of the ball outside of the Ravens and Bengals. Those two teams.
I definitely agree.
We'll see. And I hate your team. So,
we appreciate it.
Yeah, there's that. All right, a little college football to close this out, at least on the radio side. A little buy or sell.
Okay.
A little buy or sell.
Love it.
What are the options? You're either going to buy or you're going to sell. It's pretty simple.
Buy or sell. Buy.
Simple.
Sell.
Oh, yeah, you guys used to have those sounders.
They're gone now.
Don't even ask.
Buy.
Don't even think about asking.
Well, they're not programmed in. They're not even programmed in anymore.
Oh, okay. I thought that was something I was going to have to find.
Can you program them real quick? We'll wait.
Yeah, I'll get on that.
All right, little college football buy or sell as we sit here today heading into the weekend. College football buy or sell. I know, Indiana, right? Indiana's an interesting team. The interesting thing about the 12-team playoff to me is that I did not think that there'd be any interest because who gives a rip about the 13th team that misses the playoff? Yeah. When the team that just misses the 14 playoff, you can make an argument that the number 5 team in the country is still good enough to win a national championship. The number 13 team in the country is not good enough to win the national championship. Now, it's not as simple as the 13th ranked team technically being the 13th ranked team in the playoff seeding, but either way, I think that there are going to be a lot of teams like Indiana and others who are going to be in the playoff conversation. They're 5-0. They're undefeated. Indiana is undefeated, and they avoid some major landmines scheduling-wise moving forward, right? So buy or sell, Indiana is a legit playoff contender. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell. I don't think they've played anybody, right?
They also don't. So
I was going to say, so they've beaten FIU 31-7. They've beaten Western Illinois 77-3. They did beat UCLA on the road. UCLA notably stinks and doesn't have home fans. 42-13. Charlotte they beat at home 52-14. They beat Maryland 42-28. Now the offense does look solid. Saying that, I mean, they play Northwestern, Nebraska at home, Washington at home, so that'll be a loss. We have Michigan State on the road. Then they play Michigan at home, Ohio State, and Purdue. No, I don't think they will. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I'm going to sell.
It's not will they make the playoffs. So are they a playoff contender?
Yeah, they won't be in contention by November 23rd. After November 23rd, it'll be over.
So I was wrong when I said they avoided the scheduling landmines. I mean, they do play
I think they did.
I mean,
Oregon, no USC, no Penn State.
Can you have I think Indiana, a one-loss Indiana team throws a big wrinkle in all of this because what if there's a one-loss Ohio State team? What if there's there's already a one-loss USC team? There'll be a one-loss Oregon or Ohio State team after this coming up weekend. The only thing Indiana has to do to be a legit playoff contender is beat Michigan or Ohio State. They're not beating Michigan State. I do think they beat Michigan. That offense of Indiana's is really good.
Really good.
They've put up 30 or more in every game. They have a game where they put up 70-plus points. I know it was against Western Illinois, big whoop. But the point is, when you play nobody, you better make them look like a nobody, and that's what they did. 40 up against UCLA, 50 up against Charlotte. They just put 42 up in the shootout against Maryland. They're going to get to 6-0. I think they're going to beat Northwestern. Nebraska will be a very good game. I think Indiana, they have what it takes to make some noise. I'm going to say, yes, they're a legit playoff contender. But, again, I don't think they're a championship contender or anything like that. But I think that this is actually a very, very good Indiana team. I think they're better than what people are willing to give them credit for. We're letting the brand get in the way of falling for it at this point. But, I mean, to say that they haven't played anybody as a Cincinnati Bearcat fan over the years when people would throw that at you and you would not stand for that. But Indiana, these bums, they play nobody.
I'm not shouting from the rooftops that, well, I guess I was back then. But, no.
How is it different?
They're not the Bearcats.
Okay.
That's how it's different.
That's fair.
Bearcats are my team.
See, when we do that to you, I normally don't feel bad, but it's like you're sitting by yourself over there, and you got him on your right, me on your left. We're just coming at you left and right.
I'm out on Indiana.
That's
Elliott's
fair.
fighting a two-front war.
Yeah, I'll buy him as a playoff contender. But that's about it. I mean, they're interesting. I still don't even think that they make it. I do think that they are a contender.
I'm absolutely buying it, and I think they might make it.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're going to take care of the entire schedule, and I think they're going to take care of Michigan. If Michigan was in Ann Arbor, I think they'd lose that game. But one loss, Indiana absolutely gets in.
Oh, 100%. But I don't think they're going to lose.
I think two-loss Indiana is in the top 15. Like they're going to be right there. Curtis Rourke is a very, very good quarterback. He started the season with over 90 attempts without interception.
We need to reach out to Luke. Yeah. We need to get Luke Brenneman on. He'll tell us. He'll tell us exactly what's going on.
They had a receiver enter the transfer portal yesterday who scored a touchdown last week against Maryland, entered the transfer portal yesterday. So interested to see how that offense is going to react to losing a big-time weapon. But regardless, I mean, Northwestern, Washington, Michigan State, Purdue. Those are all wins.
And that puts them at 9.
Right. You have Nebraska, Michigan, and Ohio State. You got to win one of those to be in a conversation, 2 of them to get in. I like their chances.
I like their chances against Nebraska. I don't know if I'm picking them there, but
I
think they can beat Nebraska. I think they will beat Michigan.
I do too.
I'm very confident they beat Michigan, who literally has no. I mean, the defense might slow Indiana down, but I'm not confident that you slow them down enough to where they can't outscore Michigan's embarrassingly bad offense.
Yeah.
So, there you go. All right, buy or sell. Let's continue. Jacob, have you heard of Alabama?
No, I haven't.
They're an SEC school. They have a pretty good quarterback named Jalen Milroe, who honestly has moved up. What?
Who?
Mr. Milroe. Milroe.
I can't quite place it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll figure it out by the time you're done.
But Jalen Milroe, buy or sell, will be the first quarterback drafted in next year's NFL draft. He continues to catch the attention of everybody, especially after that big win and performance against Georgia over the weekend. But it's been interesting. Shedeur Sanders dropping on some draft boards, Milroe shooting up. There's a lot of talent. There's Quinn Ewers, who's been out for a few games, so people have got quiet on him. Milroe will be drafted, but I don't know if there's a clear-cut number one, or is Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe will be the first quarterback drafted, buy or sell.
Buying it. Jalen Milroe will be quarterback 1 in this draft. He'll be a top 5 pick. I absolutely think no question about it, he will be. Because every single game that he's played since he got benched against USF in week 2 of last year, he has looked completely like a different quarterback. Every week last year leading up to the playoff, he's gotten better as a passer and better as a runner, better as a decision maker. He fell short against Michigan in the playoff. Turns around this year, he's the second most efficient passer in football. Coming into the year, everyone thought Jalen Milroe was a first-round pick anyway because of what he can do with his legs, and the deep ball is incredible. He had a completion percentage over 75% on deep balls last year. He turns around this year, he's the most efficient deep ball passer in the entire country. There's not a quarterback in the country better than Jalen Milroe. The locked-in QB1 going into this weekend was Carson Beck. I think everyone across the board would absolutely agree that it was Carson Beck. Carson Beck threw the ball 50 times and turned it over 3. Jalen Milroe's quarterback 1 right now, and he plays a gauntlet of a schedule. He'll have more and more opportunities to prove it, and if Alabama is as good as I think they are this year, Jalen Milroe will absolutely get picked as the first quarterback in the draft. Do I think he's a phenomenal NFL quarterback and a great NFL prospect? I don't know. Probably not. But Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton worked pretty well as big body runners, and I think if you get an offensive coordinator that knows how to use him, knows how to use his arm, and can get creative, I think Jalen Milroe will absolutely succeed in the NFL. One destination I really hope he ends up at is New York. I think what Brian Daboll did in Buffalo with Josh Allen as the OC, he would be phenomenal in New York with Brian Daboll as the offensive coordinator. Alabama ties for Daboll as well. So at this point in the season, I don't know who you would have above Jalen Milroe as QB1. He certainly is in my book.
Yeah, and again, there's going to be There's going to be bigger games for him moving forward to playing as well. But at this point, the big games, the production's one thing, but the way he stood up against Georgia, and especially that they're all nationally televised games, but I mean, the spotlight game, like that one, that was huge.
12 million average views.
Yeah. It was double
Insane.
the second. It was more than double the second highest viewed game of the day. So there you go. Well, we're going to continue on with buy or sell on the YouTube side. We're out of time on the radio side, so we'll step away. We'll continue on YouTube. That wraps it up for us on radio. I know in Dayton you're going to get me for 3 more hours though, so don't go anywhere.
Lucky them.
There you go.
You
Lucky
get
them.
Kinner on the radio by himself for 3 hours. Coming up next on 1410 ESPN Radio. Off the bench, we continue on with buy or sell. Yeah, 5 hours daily. Not bad.
That's
Not bad.
crazy.
It's a lot of hours.
And I
was
don't
yesterday
get-
your first show by yourself?
Yep. And it
How
got
was it?
long 2 hours in. The third hour was okay, but like that second hour, I'm like, oh, I got a lot more to go.
Yeah.
I'm used to just throwing it to Kev or throwing it to you guys. But,
Getting through it?
getting through it.
All right.
Getting through it. I'm going to buy, as of right now, Jalen Milroe just because I don't think we're going to have a dynamic quarterback in this draft. Do you think we'll have a quarterback in this draft that will be the C.J. Stroud or be the Jaden Daniels type that is just an instant star right off the bat? Does that guy, again, we have so much college football left and the evaluations and all that, but is that guy in this draft? Because Quinn's going to be good. Yeah. Shadeur's a name who's super athletic and throws and shows flashes of it, but I don't know. I don't know if that guy exists in this draft like we have in previous ones.
I think that guy does exist in this draft, and I don't know who it is. All of these quarterbacks in this draft class are good at something, and they're incredibly destination dependent.
Milroe fits the mold of those other two.
Exactly. And the only other one I think that could, if he ends up in the right spot, is Cam Ward. Because he's been a multi-year starter. He throws and runs. If he goes to a team with a bad offensive line, you could probably overcome it. I don't know that Beck could. I don't know that Ewers could. I think all of those guys can be very, very good in the right situation. I don't know that any of them are a layup anywhere.
Cleveland loses this weekend. They're 1-4. All right. I think Cam Ward in Cleveland is a legit possibility.
Man.
I think
drafting
Cam Ward in
Shedeur.
Cleveland. I don't. If I'm Shedeur, I'm who. I promise you this. It is October 2nd, 2024. If Shedeur Sanders is a Cleveland Brown, I'm who-daying it up with all of you. All right? I'm who-daying it up with. I will become a Bengals fan. The second that Shedeur Sanders is drafted to Cleveland,
boy.
I am a Bengals fan. And
I
I
think
am not.
you'd have
That's
to-
not even a joke. I am being 1,000,000%. I will apologize. I will reach out to the Bengals communications department and just have a message relayed to Joe Burrow. I will be sorry for every bad thing I said about you. That is how serious I am. I do not want to deal with the Shedeur noise in Cleveland.
I
at
think
all.
you'd have to go through a pretty interesting initiation process from the Bengals boys in the chat if you want to become a full-time Bengals fan. They get to go for a while.
I mean, whatever haircut Joe Burrow arrives to camp in next year, I'll follow it. But man, oh man, you're right. I think no Shedeur. But Cam Ward, the Bengals or the Browns win-loss total just moved to 5.5. They're picking. They're going to be unless something major changes. That's why them Cleveland being in that they're kicking the tires on DeAndre Hopkins or obviously Adams. That's not your problem.
Why?
I mean, offensively, they're the worst-rated offense in the NFL. I get that, but like a lot of that is because you don't have Nick Chubb, which he's back at practice starting yesterday, and then the offensive line is bad. So, and Deshaun's not great. So I mean, and by the way, this is why whenever we talk about the QB situations with teams, I'm like, but the Browns, they're going to owe them all that money, but they're going if they get a Cam Ward, they get their first-round picks. If you get a Cam Ward,
I don't know that Cam Ward's going to be a first-round pick.
you don't think it's
He's
that?
so old that you might
Well,
be
they
able to
love-
get him at
they
like
love
35,
Weeden.
though. I mean,
Huh?
like you might be able to get him at like 35. Like taking someone else in the first and still getting a Cam Ward.
Quinn's being brought up too as a possibility,
That
but
would
the
make me
Shedeur,
happy as a Quinn hater.
Yeah, I like Quinn, but you find out how much you really like somebody until your team is in the running to draft him, and then I'm like, maybe I don't like Quinn. I don't know, but buy or sell. Moving on. Speaking of Shedeur Sanders at this point, Colorado will win the Big 12. Elliot, will Colorado win the Big 12 buy or sell?
Sell.
Now they're second right now. They're in second.
I'm
right
aware.
Now.
I'm aware of the situation. I think if Colorado wins it all, I'll be very, very sad. I'll be very, very sad. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the train is going to crash at some point. I do not think they win the Big 12. I just don't believe it. They could win the Big 12, but I think their one knock is going to be UC marching into Boulder for a big W. That final score being 95-94.
Ooh.
No defense in that game
0.
whatsoever. There will be no punts in that game. That's a promise.
Little Commanders Bengals remake right there, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Brutal.
So we're going to take the Bearcats on that one, and we're going to take the Colorado Buffaloes to lose.
I would have sold this to Kingdom Come last week, but I thought UCF was going to go in and take care of business at home against Colorado, and they did anything but. They lost 48-21 as 2 touchdown favorites over the Buffalo. I wish we were doing this next week because Colorado plays Kansas State this week. And if they can win this game against Kansas State, I will buy this as much as possible because whenever anyone asks me about college football and who to pick in a conference or who to pick in a game, it's pretty simple in college sports. It's pick the team with the better players. Because more often than not, across the course of a 60-minute game and a 12-game season, the team with the better players is going to win. And Colorado has the 2 best players in the Big 12. So I'm not completely ruling it out.
Sorsby's best.
But Kansas State this week is going to be a struggle. It's at home, which will certainly help. They go to Arizona, which is not easy. Arizona was a team that was ranked at the beginning of the season with maybe the best wide receiver in the country, Tetehore Mitchell. Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Utah, who probably won't have Cam Rising by then, who knows? They're absolutely in the mix in this Big 12. And if Travis Hunter's going to get a pick and a touchdown every game, which honestly at this point I can't put past him, why not? I'm going to sell it just out of protecting myself from joining the Colorado bandwagon. But if they win this week, if they beat Avery Brown and Kansas State this week, I am all the way in on this Avery Johnson, sorry. If they beat Kansas State this week, I'm all in on this Colorado team in terms of winning the Big 12, not championship-wise.
Good for Dion and Colorado. They're 4-1. I buried them even after when they win, they look bad. But the last couple of weeks, they've dominated opponents. I mean, Baylor 30-31.
Hail Mary.
No, offense dominating opponents, to be fair. But, like, that's how you're going to win in college at this point. At this point, and that's typical Big 12 football, as we now know. But, man, You're
Big
right. If we
12
did this next week, we'll know. Like, if they beat Kansas State, I think a lot more people buy next week if they beat Kansas State. You're right. If this question gets thrown out, this buy or sell gets displayed a week from now with the win over Kansas State, the Big 12 is not very good.
No.
It's not very good. And then when you look at the teams that they have after Kansas State, I'm not sold on Utah. Pretty much every talking point you mentioned, I'm with you. Cam Rising probably has 2 IR stints between now and then before they even get to that matchup in a
Scheduled
month.
tweet by Pete Thamel every Saturday morning. Hey, 9 a.m. Just automatically send Cam Rising game time decision.
So, it is what it is. I'm going to say Colorado will win the Big. I'm going to sell it. It's basically a cop-out answer. A week from now, if they beat Kansas State, I'll buy. But I'm going to sell for right now. But they're interesting, and the Big 12 has opened the door for them to be interesting. And I think college football, deep down, ESPN, Fox, whoever's in charge of this playoff, ESPN, they really want Colorado to win that Big 12. They really want them to win.
Notice how much
Big 12.
quieter it's been? They were real loud last year. Didn't go their way. Now they're winning some games.
Called maturity.
You're not hearing a Pete.
Which is good.
I mean that
yeah.
as little of a side shot as possible at Dion and those guys. I think Shedeur might have matured a little bit.
Well, I don't know about that.
That's big time.
Yeah, I mean,
You know
sure.
what?
He's not trashing his
Screw
own
it.
line after every
Shedeur
game.
to the Browns, dude. I'm all in.
Yeah.
You sold me.
I don't think so. By the way, shout out to Chase and Colin. Chase Wellman, Colin Will. Member for 3 months, Colin. Member for 4 months, Chase. He says, good riddance, Bally Sports. Just had to throw those in there before I forgot.
And last one, as we wrap it up, buy or sell. Ohio State. So we saw Alabama, Georgia this past weekend. The next big-time college football showdown. This time it'll be out of the Big Ten. You have 2 national championship contenders, not just playoff contenders, but national championship contenders. Oregon and Ohio State will kick off a week from Saturday, but Ohio State has Iowa before that.
Oh, boy.
Buy or sell, Iowa is a trap game. Buy or sell.
I'm going to sell it into the sun. No, Ohio State's going to roll them. How is Iowa going to score a point? That's my question. They don't score. No points for Iowa. I think Buckeyes win this game 27-3.
So not covering.
Huh?
Not covering.
What's the spread?
24.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ohio State.
That's a push then. Shout out to my brain, though.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm buying this. Honestly. I think Ohio State's schedule over the next few weeks is by far the toughest in the country, and I'm worried about a lot of the games. I mean, you have Iowa at home this week, then you go to Oregon, as you said, then you play Nebraska at home, then you go to Penn State. That is an absolute gauntlet. Before the season with realignment, I said I don't think any team's going to go undefeated all the way to a national championship, and that holds true for Ohio State as well. I think in this 4-game stretch, if they're going to win the Big Ten, in this 4-game stretch, they will drop a game. I do not see them going 15-0 or whatever it would be, 16-0 to win a national championship. I just don't think that's feasible with how much harder these schedules are than they used to be. And I think that loss comes somewhere in these 4 games. I don't know who it'll be. I would guess one of the away games. Ohio State does a very, very good job of defending their home field, but I'm not looking past this Iowa team. This Iowa team, this defense is very, very good. And I know Ohio State's offense is great, but if you're stuck scoring 20 points, hoping for a win, you can have chaos that takes place that makes the game close and at least a sweat. So I think it's absolutely a trap game, something I'm worried about. And for an unranked matchup, it's going to be probably one of the most tuned in I am to an Ohio State game all year long.
Well, this is kind of like a trick question a little bit, or a trick buy or sell. Iowa is a trap game, buy or sell. Teams win trap games all the time. This is the exact definition of a trap game. This is a trap game. I don't even know why. It's my fault. I put it on there. Iowa.
So this is just a wordplay battle.
This is just
now.
a wordplay battle. I guess at the end, I started thinking about it. I'm like, Iowa is a trap game whether they blow them out by 50 or not.
Right.
Iowa is an opponent that, all right, man, like everyone's gearing up for, especially after what we saw with Alabama and Georgia. That was one hell of a matchup. But Ohio State, Oregon's the next big one for all of college football. And Ohio State, they're jacked up for this Oregon matchup because they've played nobody.
Yep.
For everyone in the chat that's poking fun at Ohio State's schedule, you're not going to hear a peep out of Jake or I. We know it's been bad. I mean it's so soft. It's bad. We know that.
We know
completely get
nothing
it.
about this Ohio State team.
Yeah. So with that being said, they're looking at Oregon on the schedule like, oh, we cannot wait to play this Oregon team. Fans are doing the same thing. I don't care about this Iowa matchup. I'm not even intrigued by this Iowa matchup. It's the exact definition of a trap game. Ohio State, even if they win by 50 on Saturday, all I'm going to say on Monday is they won the trap game, because this is an opponent and a matchup that nobody cares about, including Ohio State, and that's what makes it a dangerous matchup as they look ahead. You know, to use the Bengals as an example, if the Bengals got out to a better start, I would have looked at Carolina as a trap game with the Ravens coming up around the corner. Carolina was not a trap game anymore, because when you're 0-3 and you're desperate to get your first win of the season, the Bengals weren't good enough to look ahead to Baltimore, right? Ohio State's good enough to look ahead to Oregon, but that's what makes this a trap game. It makes it dangerous. So, yes, I'll buy. It's just a badly worded buy or sell on my part, so my apologies. But, yeah, it's a trap game. We'll see. But
not the traditional sense of a trap game, but this week Alabama goes to Vanderbilt to play the Commodores. And throughout the week, Kalen DeBoer and the assistant coaches have lined the hallways and the meeting rooms and bathrooms of the football facility with mouse traps. All the hallways are full of mouse traps.
What?
So, yeah, Saban used to always do it, and good to see DeBoer's keeping it alive. So, yeah, don't let the rat poison fool you. Finally up to number 1, get a good game, but no games are easy in the conference, so you got to go stay locked in for the Vanderbilt game. It's a trap.
Has anybody been hurt by the mousetrap?
Probably. Good. Focus. Big game.
I heard there's a lot of mouse traps at Nippert too, but they have mice
Well, they're
everywhere.
mice,
They leaking. It's just a problem.
Nice.
Screw you, Elliot.
Oh.
You had that coming, dude. I mean, you just sitting there minding your own business, and we just take a shot at you for no reason. I'm so sorry. That's called bullying where I'm from.
It is called bullying.
All right.
But
Good
nonetheless,
show.
look at that. Right up to, we have 60 seconds to fill.
Should we just
Elliot,
count down?
closing thoughts. Yeah,
59.
closing
58.
thoughts, Elliot.
Oh, it's 12 now.
With that being said, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.